Hey everyone, my name is Jake, and welcome to the 12th episode of Good Timin. As always on this podcast, we're going to be talking all about one of our favorite bands, the Beach Boys. And today we're going to be picking up on our Beach Boys collaborator discussion from a few weeks back, and we're going to be covering some of the notable people who the band worked with from around 1968 up to the present day. So unlike our first discussion, where we focused on collaborators who were mainly just involved with Brian in the early to mid 60s, most of the people who we talk about on this episode have worked with other members of the band as well. So we're going to talk about people like Daryl Dragon and Greg Jakobson, who both worked with Dennis. We're going to talk about Terry Melcher, who mostly worked with Mike. We're also going to be talking about several people who had a major role or position with the Beach Boys beyond just being songwriting collaborators. So people like Jack Rieley, who of course managed the band in the early 70s, and Steve Levine, who produced the band's self-titled album from 1985. So joining me today for the second Collaborators episode, I have my usual three collaborators of Rieley, Justin, and Matt. So as always, I'm glad to have you guys here, and I'm looking forward to talking about some more of the people who work with the Beach Boys over the years. So since we do have quite a few more collaborators to discuss on this episode than we did on the first one, I think we should jump right in. So Rieley, do you want to start us off and share the first collaborator that you'd like us to cover?
Yeah. So the first collaborator we want to talk about is Murray Wilson. We don't want to go into too much of the history with him. I feel like most Beach Boys fans already know it, and there's just a lot to take in with that. But I do want to talk about the two specific songs that he, I guess, gave to the band: Breakaway, which came out in '69, and Won't You Tell Me, which I don't think had an official release. Justin, want to correct me on that?
Oh, I didn't know.
I just want to mention those two songs. Breakaway was written was like actually like a real collaboration between Murray and Brian. I don't know the exact story. I'm sure one of you guys might, but that was an official release by the band. It was released in 1969, right before the Sunflower album. And The other one is Won't You Tell Me, which was we talked about it before. Was written for the Sun Rays, and eventually the kind of Carl and Brian just kind of said, "Fuck it, let's do this with Murray," and that's where we are. So I mean, do you guys want to talk about those two real quick?
I love Breakaway. I think it's a really cool single. It was a good choice of a single. It's a bit of a shame that it underperformed, at least here in the States. I know it did pretty good in Europe. I love the flip side too of Celebrate the News. But yeah, I really like Breakaway. It's very like, it kind of has like that sunshine pop vibe. It's very like upbeat. Apparently, Brian has said it was inspired by the Monkees. I don't know what Monkey song he was listening to, or if it was just maybe Monkees in general, because it does kind of have a Monkees vibe to it. And I love the Monkees. I'm a big fan. So I really enjoyed that song a lot. The other one, I've maybe listened to a couple times. I don't really have any strong feelings about, but I do love Breakaway.
Oh, yeah. Breakaway is a classic.
It
I love
is.
Justin.
I feel the same way as Matt. Breakaway is such a great song. It's very Beach Boys-esque. Kind of harkens back to the early days, I believe, with the harmonies, and like it's very layered. And that song, I'm not 100% sure on why it was written with Murray, but I've heard things about Sea of Tunes being sold at the time, and like how Murray kind of felt bad about that with Brian, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna write you guys a great song, and we'll do it together, and be like old times, and blah blah blah." I'm not 100% sure, like on the if that actually happened or not, but that's some things that I've heard before. But and won't you tell me? I feel like Matt too. The same thing. Like I've heard it a couple times, and it doesn't really resonate with me. That might have been because it was released afterwards too. But yeah.
Okay, I just did a little bit of research, and it looks like Brian, apparently like Murray and Brian wrote it after watching the Joey Bishop show, and the Monkees on there played Someday Man. So maybe that was the song that inspired Breakaway.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I knew it was about like some sort of TV like show or whatever, but I mean with like Murray, I wasn't like entirely sure, but that sounds about right. Jake, any thoughts?
Yeah, I love both songs. I think Breakaway is a great single. Again, like you said, Matt, it's a shame that it did so badly, especially in the US. I mean, I think it's a great song. It's melodic. I can definitely hear the Monkees' inspiration in it. I don't think it's like one specific song that it was inspired by. I think it's just in general, Brian was going for kind of a Monkees vibe with it. And I do kind of hear that because I can't really think of another Beach Boys song or single that really sounds like this. It kind of has its own distinct sound, which I think makes the song kind of cool. And then for Won't You Tell Me, I just think it's kind of a really cool, like, outtake. It kind of has. I think I mentioned this on one of the other episodes we did. It kind of has like an association vibe, like the Zombies vibe almost. I do really like how it sounds. It's obviously incomplete, like the version that's on Feel Flows. It was just like kind of like a demo vocal with I think Brian, I think Carl's on it too. But I do like the song, and I would have liked to see the Beach Boys actually do like a completed version of it, but I don't really think it would have fit on like any of their albums or anything. So I get why it was just an outtake. So
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of Breakaway. It was barely made it to, or barely missed my top songs last year. So I'm a really big fan of it. I think I've over listened to it, so I don't enjoy it quite as much. But I think Justin, you brought up a really good point that, I mean, I kind of thought it harkened back to the early days. I wasn't sure how, and then now that you mentioned the harmonies, I mean, I guess
the harmonies, like the feel of it a little bit. It's just like more of like a sunshine kind of like happy vibe.
Optimistic.
Yeah, optimistic. Yeah,
it was very optimistic. And a lot of those songs around that time, I didn't really like. You don't really hear a lot of the harmonies. At least I don't. Like when I think of like 2020, I mean, I think of more like All I Want to Do and some of those tracks. I mean, I know Time to Get Alone has some harmonies on it, but like
music
they weren't as like apparent as it was on Breakaway. Yeah. And as a poet, Won't You Tell Me, I think it's a very good track. It does sound a bit unfinished, but I'm a fan of that one too. But Breakaway is probably one of my favorite Beach Boys songs. I kind of forget about it every once in a while. But,
so with Breakaway, so like since we're talking about like Murray Wilson's like contribution, so did he mostly contribute lyrics to this? Like, do we know? Like, or did he contribute some of the melodic parts, or what exactly did Murray contribute to Breakaway?
Not sure it's the lyrics, but could be wrong.
It just says Brian composed the song with Murray as they plunked and plunked and plunked. So it doesn't really say, but I could maybe see Murray contributing melodically speaking, not just lyrically, because I'm just thinking of like, in popular culture, whenever they make a movie about Murray, it's like syncopated guys, or stuff like that, or like the Murray Wilson Show, if you've seen that parody. So like, you see him contribute some stuff melodically speaking. I think he was probably a better melody writer than a lyric writer, because like some of the stuff he wrote, like, you guys ever heard like, what's it called, One Step, Two Step, or whatever?
Yeah,
that's a funky song, man. That really is a funky song.
Murray Wilson. He is a very melodic guy. He kind of has that like 1940s kind of music.
Big band. Yeah,
big band stuff. You kind of hear that in both of the tracks he gave to the bands.
And the many moods of Murray Wilson too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, melodically too. I kind of always pictured Brian as like solely like the music partner, and whoever's collaborating with it is the lyric writer. But I mean, Murray is a very like, I guess, musically aware guy. So, I mean,
yeah, I think he instilled the love of music into the boys. I will say, going back to what you said about Brian, he's mostly a music writer. I mean, he's lyric writer. He's got some hits. I mean, like Till I Die, but then some of the stuff on Love You, that's definitely all him, which is like, it's fun to listen to, but it can be a little. I think personally, some of those songs can be a little hard to introduce to someone who's not already in tune with the group and know what they're expecting. Like, I think the one I've always joked about is Roller Skating Child. I really wouldn't probably just choose to play that out loud for somebody with some of those lyrics,
That specific era too, like with Brian, he actually mentioned in a few interviews at the time, like in 76, 77, that lyric ideas came to him a lot easier in the 60s because they were writing off of trends. So they were writing off like the surfing trend, off the car trend, off the girls trend. And then like once the 70s came, there's no trends in the 70s. That's what he said. There's no trends in 1977 that I can write about.
Yeah. I mean, what was popular in 77? I don't even know what was like.
Roller skating.
I guess the disco, like discotheque and discotheque Mama. I mean, that was big back then.
There you go.
Mona, yeah. I don't know.
Rock.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. All right. Shall we move on to the next collaborator?
Yeah, we're kind of getting to that real collaborator territory. I don't know his name. I think it's Steve Kalinich.
I think it's Steve Kalinich. I think it's how you say it.
Kalinich.
Right. Well, he was an American poet, and he went to Syracuse and UCLA, and he's kind of was around the LA scene, but more as a poet and performer than like a straight up like artist. But eventually he was signed to Brother Records as an artist, and that's how he met some of the bands. He did not release any albums, of course. But he met Dennis, and then he helped him write Little Bird, Be Still, All I Want to Do, and a couple of outtakes, A Time to Live in My Dreams and My Love Lives On, which did show up on Caribou. He also, I think he wrote Rainbows for Pacific Ocean Blue.
Yes,
right?
I think so. Yes, I love that song.
But I was actually kind of lucky enough. There's a quote that he has about writing Little Bird. Dennis came out of the shower and I read it to him. He loved it. Dabbled a little bit at the piano and stopped. That night around midnight, he called me, excited, almost raising his voice like he had seen God and touched divine grace. He played me the melody on the phone. A cool chill ran up my spine and it was a miracle of a song. So it kind of shows their collaboration. That Steve was very much a poet and Dennis wrote the melody to it. But I mean, I think Little Bird's probably the best collaboration between the two by far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like Be Still, but Little Bird is fantastic. So those handful of songs. So what do we think?
I do love Little Bird, but if I'm not mistaken, I think Brian had a big hand in that one.
Yep.
And just gave Dennis the credit because he wanted to like encourage credit. I'm not saying Dennis didn't do anything, but I think Brian had a big hand and he kind of was a little bit generous with the credit. I still love the song though. It's a great song, especially like the what a day, that. And I like the where it's like I just like the lyrics too. I mean, I think Steve Kalinich did a great job with that. All I Want to Do, it's okay. I don't dislike it as much as some other people, but I don't like love it either. I kind of like the vibe of it, especially like the little surprise at the end of it. But the final mix is kind of muffled sounding, in my opinion, on 2020. I think it sounded a lot better live. I think it personally, that's a song that I would have loved like the Ramones to have done. I think they would have done a really cool job with it or something like that. As a Beach Boys song, it's all right. And then Be Still I like, but it's a little half baked. But I do like it. It has a nice ambiance to it. I will just want to say I love Rainbows. That is one of my favorite songs on Pacific Ocean. I love that song. Love Rainbows.
Yeah, I for Little Bird, Brian came up with that. I think the bridge section.
Where's My Pretty Bird? Yeah,
I love that part too.
Part Brian. I mean, that is my favorite part of the song. But that's the part Brian came up with, or at least according to documents and stuff.
Okay.
Like that.
I mean, like I said, it's still a really pretty song, and it was actually the B-side to Friends, if I'm not mistaken, the 45.
I think you're right on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a true mono mix too, because I think Friends, the album itself was stereo only, but the singles were still mixed in mono, which is kind of cool. And as far as I know, they have either never been collected digitally or they were on like some kind of like weird Japan expensive compilation. So that's kind of cool.
Justin?
Yeah, so Steve Kalinich, him and Dennis were good friends for a long time. I believe they met up at around this time, 70 or 67, 68. They actually collaborated a few times throughout the years up until I think it was 75 or 76. They were still doing some stuff that got unreleased. But Little Bird is probably the strongest of the two Friends tracks that they did together. Just because of the production. That a lot of that's with Brian doing the production on that, and just the different instruments and stuff, and the harmonies, the middle section, like Jake mentioned, that was Brian contributing some ideas there too. Be Still, I think with a little bit more production to it, it's kind of just bare as it is right now. That's actually Brian playing the organ on that specific track too. So he helped a bit with that as well too. And then Rainbows, like Matt too, it's one of my favorite songs on Pacific Ocean Blue. They did a great job together with that one. Yeah, like I mentioned before, like in 75, they had a project that they were working together on of about 4 or 5 different songs that just never got released at the time. And the Steve Kalinich too. He also contributed with Brian. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about this later, but on a couple different tunes as well.
Yeah, Jake.
Yeah, I really like you guys said. I think Little Bird is the strongest of the songs that Dennis and Steven worked on. I think it's a great song. Obviously, like we've said, Brian did contribute a good amount to it, like that bridge section. But I think it's a great song. I think the lyrics are fun. And I think it's one of the most memorable songs on Friends. As you guys also said, Be Still, I think it's a little too bare bones for my liking. It does kind of feel almost like a demo. That I wish they would have done a little more with it. I do think, like, in the context of the album, it works fine. But like, this is not one that like if it came on like shuffle, this would not be. To me, this isn't that much of an enjoyable song. It's not bad, but it just kind of like sits there. Doesn't do too much for me. All I Want to Do. We've talked about this song before. Like, I respect the vibe that they were going for. I get what they were going for. It's kind of unique and cool to hear like the Beach Boys do a more like hard rocking song, but I don't know. I don't think it was executed the best. Mike does sound a little bit out of his element to me on it. And I think I think they've written stronger rockers for sure. So not my favorite song. Like you said, Matt, it's interesting. The little surprise they threw in at the end. It's kind of funny, but yeah, it's not my favorite song, but I wouldn't say it was bad by any means. It's just not one that I particularly enjoy. So yeah.
Little Bird's probably my favorite. I mean, I think I already said that by far. It was one of those tracks that surprised me when I first listened to it as like a Beach Boys deep cut, and then I learned that Dennis, their drummer, wrote it. And back when I was still like getting into the band, I mean, the drummer is generally not the one writing the songs in the band, and if they do write a song, it's Octopus's Garden. So I mean, like, it's not exactly like the greatest or most like complex track in the world. But that was a song that got me into Dennis as a songwriter. Be Still, I think is kind of boring, but it's actually originally was just a regular poem by Steve, and then it was turned into a song afterwards. So that kind of makes sense as to why it's pretty boring. All I Want to Do is a track that's been growing on me recently. I think it is because of like just the general like nature of the song being like a Beach Boys doing a rocker, and it just has high energy. I do think performed live though, like much better. I think that is a track. I was gonna say that'd be a good punk rock song if like the Ramones or the Clash covered it. That'd be pretty darn cool, but I don't think that ever happened. The two outtakes. I don't think I actually listened to A Time to Live in My Dreams. My Love Lives On is pretty interesting. I have to give it a couple more listens because I'm trying to like get into those like outtakes of that era, like Caribou and all that. So I'm sure it'll grow on me, but it's definitely far more interesting than some of the other stuff. Like better than Be Still. I think that song's just really boring. It's probably my least favorite track on Friends besides TM. So
A Time to Live in Dreams. That's the one that goes, A time to live in dreams. A time to. Oh yeah.
My Love Lives On is from Caribou. That's the I haven't listened to that. A Time to Live in My Dreams, but so a couple fun facts. He did write Rainbows for Pacific Ocean Blue, but he also played kazoo on Child of Winter.
Oh God, our favorite song, right?
Fantastic song.
There you go.
But he had no collaboration.
He co-wrote that song.
Did he really?
Yeah, he co-wrote that with Brian.
That was such
Well, I know. Okay, so we know his worst song now.
I thought it was Be Still. I didn't know he wrote that. I'm like, I was so confident that he did not help in that song. And then
he co-wrote that. He co-wrote because they did a few different co-writes around that time. They did California Feeling. This was around like 74. California Feeling, that song. And there was a song called Lucy Jones. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that one.
No.
It's pretty brutal.
I saw that somewhere that he helped write California Feeling, but he's not credited, is he?
Maybe recently he has been.
Yeah, because I didn't.
He wrote the lyrics for that.
I like double checked that on Spotify. Otherwise, I was going to mention it. That's. So I don't know.
I just wanted to say too, you were mentioning drummers not being great songwriters. There's another exception I can think of, Don Henley for the Eagles.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Don Henley.
What'd you say?
Yeah, but he's Don Henley. He's not Ringo. I mean,
I know, but I'm just saying, like, because like I know there's a joke. The other joke too is like that nobody loves the bass player. That's a TV trope, but of course, Paul McCartney, Brian Wilson. There are exceptions.
Roger Waters,
yeah.
A lot of basses. Glenn Matlock of the Sex Pistols was the main.
John Entwistle. He wrote some songs, right?
John Entwistle was great, yeah.
Glenn Matlock is great too, and then they kicked him out of the Sex Pistols, and then they broke up.
Yeah, they replaced him with Sid Vicious, who couldn't play at all.
Sid Vicious, yeah.
Like, I know he's there for the image, but Glenn can write some tunes.
No, I know. Well, that's like, I know we're getting off topic, but that just is like some people like have argued like, oh, the Sex Pistols were kind of like a boy band, kind of because they were put together and.
When they had Glenn Matlock, I'm a Glenn Matlock stan. I love him. You ever read his biography?
I need to read it. Sounds interesting.
It's so damn good. All right.
I love Sid and Nancy. Great movie.
Good movie. All right. You guys want to move on to Daryl Dragon?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
I don't really want to. I hate freaking Captain Sid.
Yeah, I mean, Daryl Dragon definitely was a bit syrupy for sure.
More than Bruce. Like, I mean, I actually like. If I like put them neck and neck, I much prefer Bruce. Like, miles above Daryl Dragon and freaking Captain and Tennille bullcrap. But we're getting off topic. All right. So Daryl Dragon came from a musical background. He actually studied piano at San Bernardino State College for a couple of years before dropping out to start a band with his brothers called the Dragons. He's in a couple of bands around that time besides the Dragons. Charles Wright and the Right Sounds, Yellow Balloon, but never any big success with them until he joined the Beach Boys touring band in '67. Mike Love actually gave him the nickname Captain Keyboard. He actually wore a captain's hat along with the name. And after working as a touring musician, him and Dennis wrote a couple of songs, Sound of Free and Lady. It's credited as Dennis Wilson and Rumbo. He actually arranged the coda for Don't Go Near the Water. And then we get to our two favorite tracks from Carl and the Passions, Make It Good and Cuddle Up. So that was his history with writing with Dennis Wilson. What are your thoughts on those couple of tracks?
Well, I like the 45 of Sound of Free and Lady. I really enjoy both of those songs. I think I like Lady a smidge more, but I do like Sound of Free as well too. The other two, we just did the Big Car on the Passions episode, so to make a long story short, Make It Good is a freaking overproduced mess. Cuddle Up starts okay, and then it just becomes another overproduced mess. So, and in general, like Captain Tennille, I think a lot of their songs were very like kind of like songs that kind of like I will admit I like Love Will Keep Us Together. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. But a lot of their songs and albums were just kind of like very syrupy, very sappy, very overproduced, and just kind of like Muskrat Love. What the hell is that? You know, I don't even. So yeah, an interesting perspective, but not one that I can say I really missed too much from Daryl Dragon.
Listen.
Next, okay. So Daryl Dragon, he's an interesting guy. So he was in the band in '67, and he basically just played keyboards till about '72, I guess. Right, was when he ended up leaving. And a lot of his earlier work seems to be a little bit better, but then around 1972, something happens. Do we know what happens? He met Tony Tennille in the Beach Boys. So then they fell in love, and they basically left the band and then started the Captain and Tennille. So I feel like some of the two songs that we always mentioned have something to do with that. Something to do with that kind of overblown kind of production that maybe he was falling in love at the time and feeling like this was the key to whatever sound he was looking for at that time. I have no idea, but yeah, I like Matt. I like his '71 single with Dennis. I feel it was really good. Like the production, it wasn't too like crazy. It was kind of like very stable and very just like basic. And then in '72, something happened. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. I feel like, and you can kind of hear that difference in like, because on Sound of Free and Lady, like those are like well-produced songs, but they're not like overblown. They never feel overblown. Like Lady has a very nice, like lush arrangement, but like it never feels like too much. But then you listen to something like Make It Good or Cuddle Up, and like there's just too much going on. You know, it's just too loud, and the strings are too loud, and it just feels like an overblown mess. But like in terms of my opinions on those songs, Sound of Free, I love Lady. I think Lady is one of Dennis's strongest songs. Now I will say, I think Sound of Free and Lady, I don't think Daryl Dragon contributed maybe to like the songwriting process of those. I think it was more a production thing, because if you look at the songwriting credits for Sound of Free, I believe it's Dennis and Mike on Sound of Free. And then Lady, I believe it just says Dennis is the songwriter. So I think that was more of a production thing from Daryl Dragon. And then in terms of the Carl and the Passions tracks, I've kind of made my thoughts. I've kind of shared my thoughts on them before. I think Make It Good is a nothing of a song. I hate it. And Cuddle Up, I think, is a really pretty song melodically, but it just gets too much is going on at the end, and I kind of want to turn it off by the time that it's over. So that's pretty much my thoughts on those songs.
Yeah, Lady was just, you're right. Lady was just credited to Dennis, at least on the 45. I don't have the other thing in front of me right now.
Yeah.
Confirm that.
Ditto to everything Jake said. I don't want to go too much into detail on it.
Okay.
Sound of Free, and then Make It Good is crap, and melodically and lyrically good. It just, that second half of that song kills me. I think they should have either shortened it or just get rid of that. They should have made like a bare bones piano, piano song, like a piano ballad.
But then it wouldn't be a Daryl Dragon production if it was just a bare bones thing.
I have no problem with that.
No, I know. I'm just. I totally agree with you. I'm just joking. But yeah.
Something real quick I just wanted to mention, because we mentioned the song, the infamous song Muskrat Love. Funny thing with that song, so like originally before the Captain and Tennille did it, there's two previous versions. There's one that's pretty well known by America. And then the original, I forgot what the guy's name who did it, but like I forgot the guy's name, but you can look it up. It's not bad. Like, I don't think it's a bad song. It's just the Captain and Tennille turned it into this, just like, they make it like the lyrics are like cheesy in the original version too, but like they just make it even cheesier just with the production and everything. So like
production, it's just like soft rock, like
right. Like you can kind of, it's like a
soft.
good example of how like the Captain and Tennille, like the problem with the Captain and Tennille, like they just turned everything into just like a cheesy 70s. And again, like I'm somebody that likes a lot of cheesy 70s stuff. Like I have a ton of guilty pleasure songs from that era. Like I know, Matt, you've said you like Love Will Keep Us Together. I don't really have a problem with that song either. I mean, it's cheesy. I wouldn't like choose to put it on, but like I don't have a problem with it. But some of their other stuff I think is not good. Like they have a cover of like that song Shop Around that I think is pretty unbearable. So
that's Smokey Robinson. So it's like, if you're gonna play Smokey Robinson, you better do it good, you know?
Yeah,
like,
make it good.
No, yeah, but like, no, you make a good point. It's kind of like you look at like MacArthur Park. It's a cheesy ass song, and then when Richard Harris did it, it was just so, oh my god, so overproduced. But then Summer did it, she embraced the camp of it, and I think she actually made quite an enjoyable disco number out of it.
I agree.
Yeah, that was in my notes, Captain Neil. I went over them a little bit. So they met when Daryl Dragon filled in for Tony Tennille's musical, and they needed a replacement keyboardist. That's actually a good point, Justin, that around that time, maybe because she was like into musicals and shit, he had to have like a 70-piece orchestra on whatever song. So that might be it. But they realized their collaborative potential, as an article put it. And they had a string of hit singles and albums in the 70s. I don't think any of them are good. I don't have a guilty pleasure song from them. I love Daryl Dragon as a person. I'm sure he's great, but
he was great.
Yeah, but his song.
Yeah, he had. If you read any quotes from him, like he had nothing but kind words for Dennis. He was always like really like he seemed to admire Dennis as a songwriter. He was like, there's this one quote from him where he's like, Dennis was playing some chords on the piano. And I walked up to him and I was like, "Oh, Dennis, that's a really nice. What song are you playing? Like, who wrote that one?" And he's like, "That song's mine. I wrote that." And then Daryl Dragon was like, "I was completely blown away by that Dennis could write such a beautiful song." So like, it's really nice to hear those quotes from him. But I haven't heard anything bad about him. I think he seems like a really nice guy. It's just I think his songs were a little overblown sometimes in terms of production. But
classically trained too.
What's that?
I said he was classic. He went to school for music. That's the thing, because Dennis didn't.
Santa Bernardino College. He knows his shit. It's just like he does. It's just on those. It's the production, dude. He's so terrible at it.
Well, that was just the style he wanted to go for. But I'm not surprised you didn't like any of the songs, Rieley. It's like it's not your cup of tea. I know.
I listen to like a lot. Yeah, you know what I listen to.
Yeah, you're not into the soft rock stuff, so it's.
I like soft rock, and I want to mention that I really like soft rock. Like I love that like 70s campiness. I like Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Hell yeah, I love him. He's had some great songs.
Yeah, I love his music because it's not like overly produced. I like me a good amount of Wings and Paul McCartney stuff. Like he's not my favorite Beatle, but yeah, the rest.
Like I love a lot of soft rock stuff too. Like I've mentioned before, like for like Wings, like I love like London Town, and that's kind of like Wings' most like soft rock album. And I love a lot of the songs, and there's some really pretty songs like I'm Carrying and the title track. Some really like they're soft, but they're done very well. They're well written songs. No, that's funny. You just mentioned Gilbert O'Sullivan because like I just been listening to what's the song Claire recently quite a bit. I love that song. I think it's like a really pretty love song. So. I feel like I have a high tolerance for like a lot of 70s cheese and like softer stuff, but like the Captain and Tennille stuff that I've heard, the majority of it is just like instant, like flip the station or just turn it off. So, yeah.
He also I don't know if you guys knew this. He had a megalocornea, which was like
One of his eyes, yeah.
enlarged. You ever seen some pictures of him like later on? You could definitely notice it, but that's where he got the sunglasses too.
Yeah.
Wow. I've had enough of. I love Daryl Dragon as a. I've had enough of his overly produced crap, and I want to stop talking about it for the next 5 episodes at least.
Well, don't worry. There's none of it on Holland. Thank God, right?
Thank God, dude. Oh my God.
Imagine what he could have, like, if he was involved with Holland, like what he could have done to a song like "Only with You." Like, oh God.
I mean, if we'll talk about, we'll get to another person that loves their overproduction too in a little bit. But I guess we want to move on to Jack Rieley.
I wanted to do Greg Jakobson since we kind of.
Ooh, yeah.
We could do Greg Jakobson.
Yeah, I actually couldn't find a lot about Greg Jakobson. I mean, actually, one of the articles I read about him that mentioned him said he was a nobody.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe he met Dennis in like '63.
Oh, yeah.
Around the time when the Beach Boys went to go play Hawaii. I think he was a friend of Terry Melcher's.
Yeah, he worked with Terry. That's the only thing I got about him.
And then Dennis helped him come to Hawaii with them, and they became friends. I've heard kind of some things that Greg Jakobson didn't really write a lot and just got like vanity credits. I don't know if that's true. That's just what I read somewhere. I don't know where I read that. Maybe like it might have been the Smiley Small forum. So take that with a huge grain of salt if you've ever been on there, because there's a lot of crap on there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain style to the songs that he's a part of. So I don't to say he wrote nothing would be a stretch.
No, I agree. Maybe he didn't do much producing. Maybe that was Dennis being generous on Pacific Ocean Blue.
Yeah. I mean, again,
I don't know. That's what I read. I'm not saying he didn't do anything. That's just what I read. He did say that Dennis had ADHD though, which I think was definitely true.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would imagine he did. Yeah.
But yeah, he actually co-wrote. I think he's Dennis's biggest collaborator. See him on Celebrate the News. All the way back. I think that's the B-side to Breakaway, right? You see him on Slip On Through Forever. That's a huge one. I mean that's Dennis's song, but that actually shocked me. I didn't know that till about a couple of weeks ago.
I think he did. Gotta Know the Woman too, right?
I think you're right, but that might have been like a later credit. I'm not sure, but
recent,
I feel like
that was a recent. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And San Miguel, one of my favorite outtakes from that era.
That's a good one.
And he co-wrote about more than half of Pacific Ocean Blue and a decent chunk of what would have been Bamboo. I think there's a lot of songs that he gets the co-writing credit on. I mean, my favorites, besides Forever, I feel like that's everybody's favorite. Slip On Through. I really like Dreamer from Pacific Ocean Blue. I think that might be my favorite on the album.
That's a great one.
And I might say San Miguel and Slip On Through. Those are probably a couple of my favorites from him. What do you guys think of some of those writing credits?
Definitely a great collaborator with Dennis. They wrote some beautiful music together. Like you said, Slip On Through is great. San Miguel's great. I know that I don't think most of you are big fans of Celebrate the News. I love Celebrate the News personally. I think it's a great song. Speaking about Pacific Ocean Blue, honestly, I love most of these songs. I even like What's Wrong. I know a lot of people are not a big fan of that song. I really like that song. Dreamer is great. You and I is a beautiful piece that they did together. Yeah, I think he was a great collaborator. Some great songs came out of it. And I think he was awesome.
Yeah, so Greg Jakobson, he was one of Dennis Wilson's best friends, like for a long time. And they did all those collaborations on Sunflower, which were really, really great. He was a huge inspiration in Pacific Ocean Blue for Dennis, along with Karen Lamb. They were kind of the two that were kind of sparking him on to do the solo thing, along with James William Garcia. And he also did some co-writes on Bamboo as well, like you mentioned. Just a great friend of Dennis, and he always seemed to support him, especially when he was kind of at his lowest points too. So, yeah.
Baby Blue too. He did Baby Blue as well from Light Album.
Baby Blue, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You get that later.
That was a Bamboo track.
Yep.
Yeah. I think you talk about Love Surrounds Me.
Love Surrounds Me was the other guy, right? Jeffrey Cushing Murray, which would get
God, that's
Carl's friend. Yeah, that was Carl's friend.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Light Album, surprise. Some of the best songs on it from Bamboo. I'm not surprised, though. To be honest with you, I think that's actually a pretty solid album. Other than the first thing on side B, that last 10 minutes.
Yeah,
That just doesn't exist. It's just not there.
That's why LA ranks like number 12 on my albums ranking list. It's because there is no such thing as Here Comes the Night Disco Mix.
Yep, Just the Wild Honey. I don't know what you guys are talking about. There's a remake? What? Huh. Interesting.
10 minutes. What the fuck?
No. It should have been 20 minutes. Just make it the whole side of the LP.
Oh yeah, that shit. Yeah. Beach Boys go full out disco. Yeah.
Triple album and one whole disc is Here Comes the Night Disco Remix, Part 1, and then side 2 you flip it over and it just keeps going.
Yeah, they should have called it Apple Jam 2.0.
Still would have been better than the Apple Jam. Okay. No, it wouldn't have. In terms of my thoughts on the songs you guys are talking about, obviously, like, yeah, Forever is just a gorgeous song. One of my favorites by the Beach Boys. One of my favorite songs in general. Slip On Through is great rocker from Dennis. I think I've kind of said before, I'm kind of mixed on Pacific Ocean Blue. Like, there's some songs that I really like, but there's some others that don't really do anything for me. But like you said, Matt, like You and I is like great. That's a highlight for me on there. Did Greg Jakobson did he contribute to like Thoughts of You and Time too? Because those are two of my favorites on there.
So Time was with Karen Lamb, Dennis's wife. Thoughts of You was some guy named Jim Dush. I have no idea who the hell that is. Dustin, do you know who that is? Jim Dush?
No idea.
I have no idea who that is. That's who co-wrote it.
Yeah, well, I love those songs. I guess then my favorite of their collaborations then on Pacific Ocean Blue would be You and I then for sure. But yeah, it's like, so Dennis had several collaborators that he worked with over the years, and like they always like Dennis seemed to work well with other people. Again, sometimes you did have issues like with Daryl Dragon with overproducing some stuff, but it did seem like Dennis worked well with collaborators. Similar like with Carl. Obviously, we're gonna get to like Jack Rieley in a bit here, but like I feel like he worked well when he had somebody working with him as well. So yeah, for the most part, I would say I enjoy a lot of the songs that Dennis did with Greg Jakobson, and yeah, that's all I have to say.
I think there's kind of a certain style to a lot of it. You can kind of tell when he's part of the song and when he's not. I mean, personally, I kind of see it. I don't know how much help he gave Dennis with Forever. I mean, that is definitely like probably Dennis's most well-known song. So who knows? But there definitely is a certain style. My favorites are probably, I think I mentioned Dreamer. I really like You and I from Pacific Ocean Blue.
Yeah.
And Forever, obviously. Slip On Through. I love that song. So.
That was a great choice of an opener. Slip On Through.
Oh, for sure. Probably because it was the first song I heard on Sunflower, but it was one of my first favorites from that album. I saw a quote, I think a couple of weeks ago, I think I mentioned it to you guys about somebody said Daryl Dragon was like Dennis's best collaborator or whatever. Like he really understood what Dennis wanted with his music and translated that to the song. I think that's a bunch of BS. I think
he said that, yeah.
I don't know I think it's pretty obvious, but you guys think Greg Jakobson was probably his like best collaborator if you really like look at it. I mean, we don't really know who contributed how much to certain things, but
yeah,
they were buddies. They were buddies. So
yeah, splitting hairs at this point. But yeah, no, I agree. I think Greg Jakobson, and I would even rank Stephen Kalinich above Daryl Dragon, honestly, just because Stephen Kalinich kind of like lit the fire that got Dennis started. And I think they also did Rainbows together. Yeah, Dragon didn't write anything half as good as Rainbows, in my opinion, at least, with Dennis.
Yeah, I like for them to say that like Daryl Dragon really understood Dennis in like translated his stuff. I mean, Greg Jakobson's literally like his best friend. I mean, I think that's kind of a bunch of crap. I think I saw this on the subreddit somewhere. So like, again, you could probably take it with a grain of salt, but.
Well, I also think honestly, I've been on Reddit long enough to know. I think some people just like to be. Well, this was something that was shared, or this was something that somebody wrote. This was their own opinion.
I don't know.
Well, if it was somebody's own opinion, sometimes people on Reddit like to be contrarian, and this might have been one of those cases because I have read some absolute dumpster fire, bottom of the barrel takes on there. We can make a whole podcast episode about that. That's all I'm going to say. So,
Jack Rieley.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh my God, this was another tough one because there was some information out there, but with Jack Rieley, you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Oh yeah,
man of mystery.
Man of music.
As far as we know, maybe he lied about this. He was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He became a journalist and a disc jockey. Again, like this is like I don't know. I seriously don't know, but I do believe he was a disc jockey, journalist.
He was a disc jockey. Yeah.
He probably was a journalist too, but he did say he won a Pulitzer Prize and a Peabody Award.
Yep.
He did not,
That's BS. That's BS.
but it was BS. But he was described by the New Statesman as a radio DJ turned career mentor. And as the Beach Boys were promoting their Sunflower album, they met him and eventually they brought him in as their manager. He wanted to restore Brian Wilson to his role as the center of the group's creativity, and he wanted to revamp the group's image to make them hip again. And Surf's Up was his first foray into the Beach Boys, and we've talked about Surf's Up like a bunch of times, so I can kind of get our quick thoughts out of his specific contributions to that album.
You want me to start with that, or just him in general, or just with Surf's Up?
Whatever you want.
Well, he was definitely an interesting character. He also apparently started an eFax company called J2 Global, which became Ziff Davis. That was years later, so he probably made a shit ton of money off that. But anyway, as far as him with the Beach Boys, I really like his contributions. I think it was a breath of fresh air when they really needed it, because their critical standing at the time was like kind of in the toilet. Their success in America was really bad. Surf's Up was a big hit for them, both critically and commercially. I really liked his contributions. I love A Day in the Life of a Tree. I really like both Field Flows and Long Promised Road. I think those are wonderful tunes. Now his work on Carl and the Passions, Marcella's great. I think we all love that song. I think I like You Need a Mouse to Help with Standalone better than most people on this podcast, but I quite enjoy that song too. And then his contributions on Holland were amazing. I mean, Sail on Sailor is an amazing song. Steamboat and the Trader are probably two of the best on there. Those are awesome freaking songs. And even Funky Pretty, I quite like. I think some of the lyrics are really, I like his like wordplay sometimes. Like a Pisces lady loves romance. That always comes in my head all the time. I love that line. And I even like some of the outtakes too. Like I know most of you aren't crazy 4th of July. I quite like that song, but I think he was really what they needed at the time. I think I liked his contributions. I kind of would have liked to see what he would have brought to the group if he had stayed on later on. I know that there was a big falling out. God only knows why. Because depending on who you ask, I mean, the Gaines book says one thing, Al says something else. So who really knows what the hell happened? But they just had that falling out. He stayed in Holland, and he lived out the rest of his life. And I just want to say one last thing. I watched that clip recently from Long Promised Road, the documentary, and it was kind of sad to see how Brian didn't even know he died. It was like, oh, Jack died, and then he was like in tears over it. I was like, oh, that was kind of depressing.
Yeah. No, and the weird thing about that too, because I remember like on Brian's social media accounts, like when he passed, like there was a post saying like, oh, I'm really sad to hear about Jack passing. So it's like, did Brian ever really know about it, or was that just his social media person just putting that out and they didn't actually tell him, So I think that's a bit kind of like raises your eyebrows, like, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that Brian was not posting his own stuff.
Yeah.
But I wonder, I do think some things he probably would articulate something and then somebody else would kind of, run it through a filter or something. Like, I definitely think like the post about Melinda, definitely, obviously he didn't post it, but he probably, had some stuff to say about it. But it does make you wonder, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
So Jack Rieley, he is a really interesting guy. His lyrics are very, very different than any other collaborator the band has had. Maybe comparative to Van Dyke Parks a little bit, in the sense that he uses kind of like similar kind of wordplay, but he also brought like a kind of a political kind of touch to the band where they hadn't really covered that sort of thing prior to that. Another interesting thing about Jack Rieley is he ended up, like Matt had said, like depending on who you ask, they kind of split from one another after the Holland album, and Jack stayed back in Holland, and he actually recorded an album a couple years after on EMI, and they just released it in Holland. It was with a guy named Machiel Botman. It's a very, very weird album if you've ever heard it. Called Western Justice, and then he kind of fell off the map after that. I know he did a couple. Like he did an interview for the Beach Boys Story, which was a BBC special in 1974 or 75. And then after that, like he was just living in Holland and nobody really heard anything from him. And then there was a period in the early 80s when he kind of resurfaced and said he needed money for like some sort of he had cancer or something, and then like a bunch of people in the band gave money for that, and uh, then he kind of fell off the map again, and it's kind of a character of mystery, I guess you could say. But I think he was integral to the band at that point in 1971, and he did some really great things for them to kind of like make them hip again and to renew interest in the band.
Yeah, I feel like as you guys have said, like I think he was a breath of fresh air for the band. I think obviously like the band was at a low point commercially around the time of like Sunflower. The interesting thing too with Jack Rieley coming on was that he actually reached out to the Beach Boys, you know, like because he had they had appeared on like his radio show, I think, like promoting an album or whatever, or a tour. And he reached out to them. I think it was like after the show had ended. He was like, "Hey guys, so like here's my plan for you guys. Like this is what I want to do. This is what we're gonna do for like we're going to change your image. We're going to make you guys fit in more with the times." So I think he was a breath of fresh air for sure. And I think Surf's Up is like kind of a reflection of that. Like you have some really unique lyrics that are very different from anything else that the band had ever did. Like you guys said, I do agree with your comparison, Justin, to Van Dyke. I think that's the closest you can get in that some of the lyrics are a little odd, like a little confusing. Like you almost kind of have to like interpret them like on like a song like Feel Flows. But I think they're great songs. I love Jack Rieley's contributions to the band. I think he worked really great with Carl. You look at a song to jump forward to Holland with like The Traitor. Like those are great lyrics, you know, about like taking land from the native people and just like really different lyrics from what the Beach Boys had been doing before. But I think those lyrics kind of like really fit them in with the time period. So I think that's really cool. Of course, obviously, like as we've said, like the guy was very odd, like in terms of a lot of lies, a lot of BS, in terms of some of the things that he claimed that he did, which again makes him kind of a sketchy character, you know, like, and I know Bruce didn't care for him at all. Bruce, basically everything Bruce has ever said about him has been negative. I think Al called him like a trickster or something, which I thought was funny, but yeah, I love his contributions. I think he was a breath of fresh air, and that's pretty much all I have to say about him.
I mean, yeah, he's a bit like I think Al called him a charlatan. He's like on the nose, but I mean, despite like all that like bull crap that he did, I'm a huge fan of what he did with the band. I think it was him that came up with the quote, "The Beach Boys have changed more than you do, or you have." I think that was
yeah.
him. And he's absolutely right. I mean, Holland's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's in my top 10. I got my third and fourth copies today. I got my one at the record store, and then I bought the Analog Productions. And I don't think my dad's gonna be too happy with the amount of money I've spent the past couple of days. But
It once, right?
yeah, it's going out of print anyways, so I might as well get it now. But I mean, his contributions to the band have obviously led to some of my favorite albums of all time. Holland being like up there in my top 10. His lyrics, I think you guys got it like right on the nose. He's like Van Dyke with his wordplay. He has a very specific style that you could tell when he's part of the song and when he's not. And him and Carl bringing Ricky and Blondie as like another like breath of fresh air for the band, especially for their live act, was huge. I mean, I actually think his part in Mount Vernon and Fairway is my favorite part. I love his little narration. He's a very good narration voice, I think.
He does, yeah. Radio voice.
Yeah, he's disc jockey.
No, and I also think that his voice, one of you guys have said this before, I think his voice works well on A Day in the Life of a Tree. I think one of you guys said like he almost sounds like the embodiment of like a dying tree. You know, I think it works really well. And then it took a long time for that song to grow on me, I will admit, but I totally agree with that. I think his voice works well in that song. An interesting quote that I wrote down from Jack. So he claims, it's like, is it BS or is it not? But he claims that he actually quit when like other sources have said that the band got sick of him and fired him. So here's Jack's quote. He said, "I chose to stay in Holland after the album was done," referring to Holland. "First, I was going to try living there for a couple of months, but then I realized I didn't like these long flights to LA to deal with, frankly, a lot of madness in the band. Some of the madness centered around the divisions in the group and the petty jealousies of certain members. It was also about how Brian Wilson was a very funky guy, prone to excesses that were sometimes amusing, sometimes idiosyncratic, and sometimes really over the top. I just got tired of all that stuff. So the next time I was asked to come out for a meeting, I decided that I was going to quit. Carl felt it was a betrayal, but it wasn't. I had to move on. I maintained my relationship with Carl and Dennis, and we remained very close. I also stayed close with Brian to a lesser extent. There was a period where he felt I was leaving them in the lurch, which was not true. So like I don't really know how much of that is true. He talks about maintaining a good relationship with Carl and Dennis. I don't really know how true that is. So yeah.
I really want to believe that because I think he's a funny guy. I really like what he did with the band, but again, like you also have to take what he says with a grain of salt. I mean, really, really, really great. What's the word? Like character. He's not great. He's a character. No, he doesn't have great character. He's a character. I listen to Live at Carnegie every once in a while. I mean, I really like his like concert intro set. He's like, "Here they are," and like, he's a great character. But.
What was that tagline he came up with? The Beach Boys have changed as much as you have.
They've changed more than you, I think, or something like that.
That was like what? That was like on like a. Was that like on like a? That was like an ad, like on like a.
Yeah, like a concert promo thing. Like they would put it on like an ad, but they'd also put it on like concert promotions and stuff.
That's good. That's like one of my favorites is I don't know if you guys have seen this one. There's Old Wave, there's New Wave, and there's David Bowie. That was a good one. Up with that. That was a good one.
It was the tagline was in I think it's in the Ceylon box set. I think that's where I first saw it, and yeah. So he did his job. He did make them hip again. I mean, Surf's Up was really big with the underground crowd. I think it reached like 25
colleges, universities. Yeah.
So he definitely did his job right. It's just he lied.
Yeah, that and also like I'm not going to go into too much detail with it, but I think there was something with like a relationship with another guy or something. That's what the Gaines book said at least. So who knows how much that's the book that I think insult.
I have listened. By the way, Justin, I was going to mention Western Justice, but then you took that right from me.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. I've listened to that too. It's funky. The musical ideas aren't really that exciting, but the topic, like the kind of theme of it was pretty cool, and I think I enjoyed it more than I liked it. If that makes any sense. Like,
is this on streaming? This thing?
Yeah, it's on streaming. It'll say 2008, but it came out in like 75, right?
75, yeah.
I literally have not heard of this until you mentioned it right now, and I tried to Wikipedia, and all I found was some like obscure movie from the 30s. So
it was only in Holland that it was released originally.
Oh, well, that makes
yeah.
I see. Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that isn't on streaming, so you never know these days.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Jack Riley and what he did with the band, but funny guy. All right. The next person we want to mention, you want to move on?
Yeah.
Ron Albeck. We jump up a couple of years because like once again, I mean, we kind of skipped that Brian's back era because that is like pure Brian Wilson, and there's not really any collaborations around that time, at least with the band in a big way. But then we get to around MIU with Ron Albeck. He's from Olcott, New York, and before he was in the Beach Boys, he was part of a band called King Harvest that formed all the way in 1969 with Ed Tulea. I think that's the name.
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough. And Dave Robinson and Rod Novak, and some of those names you might recognize. They were part of the touring band for a couple of years, but they were first King Harvest. That they were kind of an on and off band, but eventually once they went to France, Paris specifically, they recorded a song called "Dancing in the Moonlight." Altback did not do the main keyboards for the song, but he did do the intro to that song. So you guys like that song, right?
I love that song. It's one of my favorite one-hit wonders. I love it.
They recorded a couple of albums. None of them were very successful, but after one of their albums failed to chart, they actually had support from Carl Wilson and Mike Love to sign to A&M. But again, they kept on. They failed again, and then they split in '76. But even though the band split, a couple of them joined the touring band for a while. So Ed, I don't know what his last name is. Rod, I think around that time they also had Bobby Figueroa in the band. And Ron all toured with the band. And then kind of as a Mike Love side project, they formed Celebration. Done for a bit. Mike Love wanted to work on outside projects away from the Beach Boys, like solo albums. Like First Love was kind of around that time too. But he formed Celebration with Ron, Dave Robinson, some of the other guys from that kind of group of people. Because he wanted to form a band full of people who'd rather do TM songs over
TM.
drums.
Right.
So they did the soundtrack for Almost Summer. You guys ever listen to that one? Almost Summer.
I will admit I like the title track. I think it's fun. I enjoy it. It's catchy. I can actually see why it was. I think it was like a top 20, top 30 hit in the US, which I can actually see why it was. I think it's catchy. I think it's fun. Lyrics are total cheese, but I like it.
It hit 28.
Yeah, that's pretty respectable considering like the Beach Boys, like their commercial fortunes were kind of, up and down around that time. So
they also worked on a album of all originals. They also did a cover of Getting Hungry, which I say that I'm not gonna lie. Once I listened to that cover of Getting Hungry, I went back to the Smiley Smile version. I'm like, this isn't that bad.
Yeah, Getting Hungry is a odd song for sure.
I like it, but this is like what Here Comes the Night should have sounded like.
yeah,
It's disco a little bit, yeah.
And it's not bad at all. It's actually really good.
Was it, you mentioned First Love? Was that ever actually officially released?
no,
No, because I know there was Looking Back with Love. And
yeah.
That was after.
That was after. Then there was Unleashed
Yeah.
for Love, which has the funniest cover art. And then wasn't there like another one he recorded in between the two called something else that was never put out, or it may have just recently came out?
Country Love. There was Country Love too.
There was something else I thought too he had. I don't remember what it was.
God,
called.
this man and his love titles. Oh, my God.
I mean, hey, milk it for all it's worth, right?
Wait till we get to 2030's Last Love. That would be the greatest album.
Oh no,
Last Love.
that's depressing. Last love.
First Love, Country Love, Mike Love, Not War. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's like Hall of Fame of like we won't even call that a bad album title. We'll just call that's an album title, right?
I mean, no, we want to talk about bad album titles. We can talk about those all day.
No, let's talk about
God.
yeah, so Celebration, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like the album. I think it's a pretty solid late 70s pop album. I mentioned Getting Hungry, really like that one. Star Baby was written by Mike Love. It's actually a pretty decent song. Country Pie, which is actually performed by the Beach Boys a couple of times. And I think it's pretty solid. Their next album was not solid. It was all disco covers. They did a disco cover of California Girls on there. It's so terrible.
It sounds
How
terrible.
many people know about that one?
There's a reason I didn't put it on the list, Matt. Otherwise, it would have made the episode song list. But yeah, kind of like that pre-MIU Ron Outback material, like so Dancing in the Moonlight, that Celebration album. What do you guys think of that stuff?
I guess I'll go. I guess I'll go. So yeah, I mentioned I like the title track "Almost Summer" from that soundtrack. I think I've listened to the rest of it. It didn't really do much for me. I kind of like the Celebration album that you mentioned, Rieley. It's got some decent tracks on it. I think let me see what I wrote. I do like "I Don't Want to Know." I think that's kind of like it's got kind of like a bluesy kind of sound to it. I can vibe with that. I Star Baby's okay. Something interesting with some of these songs, the vocals. So I think Dave Robinson from King of Harvest sings vocals on quite a few of these tracks. And you can, if you've heard Dancing in the Moonlight, you can recognize his voice. Like I totally could tell. I was like, oh, I bet this is the guy that sang the song Dancing in the Moonlight because it totally sounds like him. And then I looked it up and sure enough, he sang, I think, quite a few of the vocals on this album. So yeah, Star Baby's okay. Go and Get That Girl is a song that the Beach Boys actually did a version of. That's unreleased. I do prefer the Beach Boys version of it, but this version is not bad. Yeah, I think it's a decent album. It's not anything spectacular by any means. Like it's not something I would like choose to put on often, but like it's listenable for sure. And I will say like the disco Getting Hungry, it works way better than it has any business to. I think I mentioned this to you, Rieley. Like I don't like the verses. I'm fine with. I think on the disco version, this Celebration version, they actually sound really cool. The verses, but then the chorus is kind of like, I don't know. I can never vibe with the chorus of this song. It just doesn't do anything for me. It just feels like too abrupt. It's like getting hungry. It just doesn't do anything for me. So just not a fan of it. But yeah, it's interesting though this disco version. So
I really like the closing part to it. The chorus, like the little tagline at the end. I'm getting hungry. Hungry for my kind of woman. Da-da-da-da. Like that part really like hits with me on that disco version.
Yeah.
That's what made me like that song. And then I really like the verses. It's actually so damn good. If you guys haven't listened to it, listen.
It's definitely worth a listen for sure. Definitely worth a listen.
It's the better version, I think.
Yeah, it's close.
Matt, Justin, you guys ever listen to Dancing in the Moonlight, obviously, but any of that Celebration material?
Might have heard it once in passing. Don't really have anything to add. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, so Ron Altbach, he started with the band in 76, I believe it was. End of 76. No, end of 75, sorry. And he played with them for a bit, and then he was one of Mike Love's buddies because he was a TM teacher before he kind of joined the band at that point. And he did the stuff on MIU as well too, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but Celebration, all those two albums I haven't really listened to too much. Almost Summer and the self-titled one. I think I've listened to maybe once, both of them. The Disco Celebration album that Rieley brought up, that's kind of a weird album. I've only heard that once as well too, but I've heard different people have said different things. Was this actually released or was it not? Apparently like they found like a bunch of copies in a warehouse somewhere that like nobody knows if it was released or like what exactly happened with it, but it was printed. But I can see why, if it wasn't released, why it wasn't, because it's pretty brutal. Like I said, the other two albums I don't really have strong feelings about, but that one is really bad. Just not really a huge fan of that sort of era of the band, so it makes sense that I wouldn't really like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Let's get to MIU.
Yeah, let's do it.
He had a lot more part in this than I thought he did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He co-wrote a couple of the songs. Him and his buddy Ed from King Harvest actually wrote Winds of Change, and
My favorite song.
makes a lot of sense.
It's an old song too. That was 75. That was written in.
Yeah. And I mean, I love Ron Altbach. He seems like a chill dude, but his writing skills weren't all that. But he co-produced this with Al. He co-wrote She's Got Rhythm, Bells of Paris, Winds of Change, those legendary songs from the band. What do you guys think?
Okay, I like She's Got Rhythm. I do like that song. I know it's kind of weird. I know it's very odd to start an album with that very off-key night I went out disco dancing, but I kind of like that song. Bells of Paris is boring as shit. Winds of Change sucks, honestly. Like, I know some people like it. I don't. Mercifully, they put it at the end, so you can just take the needle off or take the CD out or do whatever you want, because I just think it's so freaking boring. And I tried again not too long ago. I'm sorry, it's boring. Oh, God. Just even thinking about it. But yeah, I do like She's Got Rhythm. The other two, Bells of Paris is boring, and Winds of Change is even more boring. As far as the production goes, I don't think MIU is their best produced album by any stretch of the means. It's serviceable. It doesn't blow me away. He even produced My Diane. I don't know, that interesting.
Yeah, he was a part of that, really.
He was or he wasn't?
I don't think he was.
I was gonna say, because that sounds that's Brian. That's all Brian. And
they cut that track in 76, and then Dennis added his vocal in 70, early 78, maybe? Or no, it was 77 at in Seattle. What's the name of that studio? K Smith or something? Studio? That's where he added the vocal. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm going off memory here. Sorry.
That explains it, because that song is probably the best for me. But yeah, it's Sweet Sunday Kind of Love. Do you have something to do with that one too?
I think he just produced it. I'm checking the liner notes right here.
Because that one, I know Carl was not really on much of this album, and I know that like Hey Little,
it was
came for like a couple days. That was it.
Hey Little Tomboy, I know was part of the adult child thing.
That was before, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I love She's Got Rhythm, and I do love that like off key vocal.
I like it. I just don't know if it was the best choice to start the album with. But then again, I don't know what the hell else would have been a good choice to start the album with.
I think it's a good. I think
It's
it's
true.
I
I
like
don't know. It's like it's just a weird opener. Like if I had bought that record in 1978, I was alive back then, and I put it on the turntable, and the
It was
first thing
weird.
I hear is that, I'd be thinking, "What the hell did I just get myself into?"
Well,
Like,
and then you think the previous album they had just released, "Love You." That one's opening, "To Get You, Babe, I Went Through the Ring." Like, imagine people's reaction to that, like Carl like grunting at the store, like, "Oh!" Like people are probably like, "What is this?" You know, I like that song, but like people, that was kind of I feel like, well, that album as a whole was odd, but
that's one of the less odd ones, though. That's the thing. Imagine
Yeah.
if it started with like a roller skating child or something. Or Solar System. That's side B, but Solar System's a pretty freaking weird song too. Or is Solar System the first one on side B? I don't have it on vinyl.
Yeah, it's the first. Yeah,
Okay. I couldn't remember if it was that or if it was Honking Down the Highway.
yeah.
I think by that point, people knew what they were getting themselves into with the Beach Boys. Like their problems are kind of like put all over the papers and stuff, and people knew. So yeah, it was weird though. The first time I heard MIU with that opening note, I was cringing.
It got me hooked. I liked that album for a while, and then I listened to all their other material. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, this is but yeah, I that's how I feel. I like She's Got Rhythm. I don't like the other two. Yeah, this is where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion. So, like, in terms of MIU, I know Ron Outback played a big role in like the production on this album. From what I've read, it's kind of like him and Al kind of had a big hand in the production on this album. Um, I don't mind the production, like you said, Matt. It's like it doesn't blow me away or anything, but I think it works okay for the material. It's got kind of like that '70s kind of yacht rock, soft rock sound to it. And I think it works okay on certain songs. Like I do really like the production on like Match Point. Like I think that sounds really good. I love like the strings on that. I think it really like enhances the song. I love the way that song ends. In terms of Ron's contributions, I've said before, like Winds of Change, like I'm okay with it. Like I wouldn't say it's a favorite of mine, but like I wouldn't skip it. Like I wouldn't take the needle off. I'd let it play. It's fine. I think I get why you guys think it's boring though. Bells of Paris does nothing for me, as I've mentioned before. She's Got Rhythm. I think it's one of those songs where like it grows on you because it is kind of a fun song. But like, yeah, on first listen, I remember being like, "What is this?" Like when it just opens with that, just like that kind of, yeah, like that. It's like Brian's trying a falsetto, but it's just not what it once was. So it's kind of like, nah, it just doesn't sound great. But I like the song. I think it's fun. So, and that's kind of a weird one too, because I believe it was originally an instrumental, right, Justin? I'm sure you could back me up on that. I think it was originally, yeah, and then they just put words over it, and then Brian sings it. Brian and Mike sing it. So kind of an odd song there, but yeah, I'm okay with. I said before, I'm okay with MIU. I think it's one of those albums where like there's certain songs I like and certain songs that are skipped. So
yeah,
right.
Speaking of production, I do like the She's Got Rhythm, like that part where it's like I don't know what it is, but like where it's like where like Mike sings his part and it's like
yes,
background, he likes the flutes or whatever they are back there. I don't know what the hell it is. Yeah, flute and saxophone. I like that part. Like
Charles Lloyd, yeah.
The production is like I said, his production is fine. It's not the worst produced Beach Boys album. We'll get to that, but it's just kind of there, for me. It just doesn't really like. It's not bad, but it doesn't blow me away either,
Yeah.
With Jeffrey Cushing Murray, another smaller figure. I wasn't really able to find out much about him, but I had the Endless Summer Quarterly. I was able to read some interviews about him or from him. So, but he was a co-writer on a lot of the tracks on LA Light, which is one of my favorite albums from the band. Again, I think he really fits in with that yacht rock style because like all his lyrics generally have that yacht rock vibe to them. I mean, Full Sail, Angel Come Home, all of those kind of tracks, they really fit the album for me. He actually wrote Full Sail on Dennis's boat. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's cool. He was also in Vietnam.
I did not know that.
That's what Wikipedia said.
But him and Carl were really close friends. They worked really well as collaborators. I mean, I guess Angel Come Home was like their biggest like collaboration. Mm-hmm. So much so that Jeffrey went into the studio while they were recording, and then Dennis kicked him out because Dennis didn't want him in there, but he stayed in the control room. So that's pretty cool. But another one of those guys. I really feel like they have a set style to them. You definitely kind of notice their contributions more than other people. So those LA treks, what do you guys think?
I think they're all great. I think he was a really good collaborator with the group. I like it a lot better than the Ron Altback stuff. But yeah, these are all really good songs. I think my two favorites are probably Angel Come Home and Love Surrounds Me. I really enjoy those cuts a lot. But Full Sail and Going South are pretty solid too. So yeah, I think he was a good mix for the group. And I kind of wish he had stayed around a little bit longer because like Keeping the Summer Alive is just it's so inferior to me than Light Album.
Yeah, I mean, I like quite a few of the songs he contributed. Like Full Sail, I've said before, I really like that song a lot. I think it's like really like smooth, like it has a good, very smooth like melody, and it's just a really pretty song. And something interesting that like I read about this song recently. I know, like you've said before, Matt, that like you've read someone's take on a song and it kind of like changes your perspective of it. Something where I read recently with Full Sail was somebody said, it was like in the YouTube comments, I think, or something, but they said like, you know, Carl at that time had just gotten over, like he had just gotten through like his divorce, and he was like, and his, you know, his addiction with drugs and stuff. So like they kind of interpreted the lyrics of that song and like the whole sound of, as like him reaching a more like peaceful state and like moving on. And like, I really kind of connected with that, like listening to it now, like it does kind of sound like a song of like, you know, moving on and pushing forward, like full sail ahead, you know? So I really do like that song a lot. Going South is still growing on me. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as Full Sail, but it's growing on me a little. I do like Love Surrounds Me quite a bit. I think that's kind of a cool song. I know everybody talks about Baby Blue on LA in terms of like the Dennis songs, but I really do like Love Surrounds Me as well. It's kind of like a haunting song, almost like the way it's produced and stuff, the words and stuff, the way Dennis sings it. So I do like that one. Angel Come Home, I feel like of all the four of us, I'm the one that's like the least crazy about this song of everyone. I do like the part like, when my angel comes home, it's been hell being here alone. Like I like that part, but like when the group is singing like Angel Come Home, it just sounds a little whiny to me. I don't know. I don't love the way that they sound on it. I think it's not the best produced song on the album. That's something that I've noticed with some of the Keeping the Summer Alive tracks too. Like the way the vocals sound, it sounds a little like artificial. I don't know. Like I just don't think they sound great on all those tracks. But I think in terms of like a song, I think it's a well-written song. I just don't like I'm not nuts about the production on it. But
That's fair.
something interesting, Angel Come Home. I don't know if you guys knew this. I hope I'm right on this. I do think this was the song, but Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac did a version of this song. Like a solo version.
Early 80s, yeah.
And it's interesting. It's not bad, actually. I like it quite a bit. Yeah.
It's very different, though.
It is. It almost is like unrecognizable, but yeah, it's good. I like it.
Didn't they do Farmer's Daughter around this time?
Yeah. They did do Farmer's Daughter. I don't know what year that was, but they did do Farmer's Daughter.
That was definitely Lindsey Buckingham. I know was responsible for that. Big Beach Boys fan.
It's an odd pick, you know. Of all the Beach Boys songs, they pick Farmer's Daughter.
And so it shows.
So you were mentioning about the background vocals in the song and like how they sound like kind of like pinched and whiny.
Yeah,
and,
that
like, the high end like kind of like artificial kind of like artificialness of them. So this album was one of the first albums they did with the Aphex Oral Exciter, which was kind of a new thing at the time. And I think it says on the back of the album, this album was mixed with the Aphex Oral Exciter. It's kind of like a harmonic exciter, which basically boosts the high end. So this was a big thing in the analog tape days where you record, and then like the low or the high end would just keep sagging down like the more you record. So this thing would like basically restore it, but I think it restored it to like a really, really high degree. And like this is where you get a lot of these like late 70s like albums with like a lot of like high end in them, or like artificial kind of like back like a lot of like breathiness to the voices and stuff. Because a lot of bands use this device at the time. But Jeffrey Cushing Murray, he met Carl around this point in time. I think Carl had gone to see one of his bands or something. I can't remember what exactly the story was, but they met up, and he was a songwriter, and he had written like a few other songs before. He was kind of like one of those like slow songwriters. Like he'd take forever to kind of finish the song. And his whole thing was to kind of create the perfect song. I heard an interview with him, like that was his whole goal in life, just to create the perfect moment, the perfect song. And I think with these three songs, like he got pretty close. They're really great songs. He actually sings on all of them, if I'm not mistaken. He was there during the recording for most of the Light album, and he also mentioned that like majority of the Light albums just Carl and Bruce, like the other guys weren't even there like half the time. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's a shame he didn't stay on any longer, but I think there was some problems with the band, like why is this new guy around kind of thing, and like they were kind of jealous because he got a lot of the credits on the album. He was kind of a nobody, but I think they did really well, and this is probably one of Carl's best collaborators, along with Jack Rieley.
Yeah, I mean, you guys already know my feelings about this album. I love it. I actually like Beach Boys 85 a little bit more than this one now, but I don't think that's a huge deal for you guys. But I really love this album. And these songs are the reasons why. I mean, I love Good Timin', but it's maybe like my fourth favorite song on the album. Angel Come Home is in my close to my top 25 Beach Boys songs. I'm a really big fan of it. I actually thought it was a Dennis track for the longest time, and then I actually saw the writing credit and I saw that it was Carl. So I think it's one of Carl's better tracks. Not as good as The Traitor, but I mean, The Traitor is also like one of the greatest songs of this period. But these tracks make up the core of the album for me. These like yacht rock, slow rock tracks. I think I mentioned before that it was, for me, it's kind of like a spiritual successor to Holland with the Carl tracks and the Dennis tracks on the album. And because I feel like, well, maybe they don't measure up to the quality of Steamboat and The Traitor. They are very high quality songs, very big standouts from this era for me. And the person with the co-writing credit on all these was Jeffrey Cushing Murray. So, the next album that they had a collaborator on was with Randy Bachman and Keeping the Summer Alive. But I gotta be honest, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I listened to Keeping the Summer Alive. Yeah, I thought it was kind of blah. It just kind of like went.
And like for me, the best songs on there don't even have him as the songwriter on it. Like,
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, he only,
I mean, the two songs, right?
Yeah, just two. Yeah, it's Keeping the Summer Alive and Living with the Heartache. I mean, they're not terrible. They're just kind of just there, you know, like Living with the Heartache just kind of like, it doesn't really go anywhere. Like it sounds like it's I feel like it starts okay. Like the verse melody isn't bad, but then like, I don't know, it just feels like it's missing something. And then Keeping the Summer Alive, I think that's a song that's really hurt by its production. I don't think it sounds great on the album. It's kind of got that like the vocal thing that we were talking about, Justin, where like I think the vocals don't sound great on it. I think it sounds very like light. Like I feel like this song, like they should have like cranked up the guitars, make it more like rocking. Because like if you hear this song live, it actually sounds pretty good. Like Carl really sells it with his vocal. I do like the bridge section where like it slows down for a second. I do like that little part. I think that's like the nice, like my favorite part of the song. Yeah, this is one where like it's kind of like a lot of the other songs on Keeping the Summer Alive. I think it's hurt by the production, but yeah, I mean the Randy Bachman thing. Yeah, the Randy Bachman thing. Yeah, I mean it wasn't definitely not one of Carl's best collaborators. I think I learned from that Beach Boys Basement channel that Carl actually wrote maybe another song or two with Randy Bachman that appeared on like Randy Bachman's albums. I think one of his bands was called like Iron Horse or something, and there's one of those songs is on one of those albums, but I don't think I've heard it. So
yeah, you're right. The title track's pretty good live. It's in my Beach Boys playlist now. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But it's like the Beach Boys doing Taking Care of Business. Like
yeah, it's just, I mean, it is. It's like literally the verse melody is literally the same. It's like when it's ice cream weather, when I get up in the morning, like it's like literally like they sat down and they were like, oh, this is a good melody. Doesn't it sound kind of like Taking Care of Business? It's okay. Like, we'll just do it anyway.
I already wrote it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's fine.
So Randy Bachman, he's Canadian, so I'm Canadian, so I have to kind of defend him a little bit. But with the two of them together, you'd expect like some really great songs because they're both great writers. Like Carl is great with like the music side, and Randy Bachman's great with the music side and lyrically. Like he's written some really great songs over the years. And like when I saw that they collaborated with one another, I was really excited and like to hear the results. And they were kind of middling, to be honest. probably the better one out of the two, but the two is the title track out of those two. But the production just absolutely sucks on that album. I hate it so much. The drum sound is just oh so bad, and it just sounds like so neutered and like it wasn't mixed properly. Like the guitars need to be louder. It needs to be like more rocking and more like just sounds like too like safe. They're trying to play it too safe. But yeah, I think with better production, that song would have worked. Living with a Heartache was kind of a dull kind of song. Maybe with better production, that would be better, but I doubt it. Just the song really goes nowhere. Yeah.
It just kind of like plods along. Like again, like it's not bad. Like it's fine.
Bad,
like I wouldn't even say like if I had the album on, I'd be like, oh, I want to skip this. I don't think I would, but like it's just kind of there. Like it's just feels like it's missing like a chorus. It just kind of just keeps. I don't know. It just doesn't. It's not an interesting song. Yeah, I hear it. It goes in one ear, out the other.
You'd expect more from the two guys,
right? Especially, and you'd expect it like with Randy Bachman, like with Bachman Turner Overdrive. You know, like you look at like those songs. You know, you would think like, oh, this is going to be some really rockin' material. You know, but then like you hear the songs and it's like they're not at all. Like, and Keeping the Summer Alive had the potential to be, but I think Carl and Bruce, who were mostly they're to blame in terms of the album's production. It was like they wanted this like softer sound, and it's like it doesn't suit that song, like Keeping the Summer Alive. So I don't know. It's just we can move on from Randy Bachman.
Myrna Smith, I want to give her a quick shout out, but she was more of a Carl solo album producer.
Yep.
On a couple of other songs that are coming up that I really want to talk about. But in the solo albums, they're kind of boring. I mean, I'm sure we could talk about them in another episode if we do a solo albums episode. But I mean, overall, I mean, besides Heaven, I don't think she really contributed. And the couple of other songs I want to talk about soon, not much from her. Again,
Yeah, I kind of agree. I will say she's a very interesting character. So she was a high school teacher, and then she was a member of Dionne Warwick's Gospel Airs, which eventually evolved to the Sweet Inspirations, which she was in with Cissy Houston, the mother of Whitney Houston, and also the cousin of Dionne, or the niece of Dionne Warwick. They sang backup for Aretha Franklin and Elvis. So she sang with Elvis for a bit. She began dating Jerry Schilling in the 70s, who managed the Beach Boys. So I'm assuming that's where she met Carl. She seemed like a really sweet person from what I could tell. She was a very beautiful woman, but as a songwriter, Carl's solo albums are just kind of there. I don't think she was the best collaborator for him, but Heaven is a very pretty song, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but 85 does have some really good cuts on it. One of your favorites, I know. It's a pretty solid album, I have to say.
Yeah, Myrna Smith, she had a great voice. With the Sweet Inspirations, obviously with Elvis, they had that connection with Jerry Schilling and everybody. I think they were married, Jerry Schilling and Myrna Smith. They were married, and then she was singing with Carl when they were married. I think, it just wasn't the greatest. She wasn't really a writer; she was more of a singer, and I think that was part of it. But I think Carl at that point was just like kind of lost, and he didn't really know exactly what he wanted to do. Because I think at that point in like 1980, 1981, he wasn't really listening to a lot of like new music, and he was kind of like old at that point, even though he wasn't really. He just felt like out of touch with what the youth what was going on with youth in 81. Because like, think about the top albums of 1981. What did you have? Like New Wave and stuff like that, like Elvis Costello and like all these other people. And obviously he couldn't compete with that. So I think he brought in Myrna Smith to kind of give like a little bit of eye candy with her background vocals and that kind of stuff. And
I mean, she was definitely pretty.
She was pretty, yeah. She was a good looking woman.
And I think she had a good voice too. Like the one song I can really think of where like her vocals are really prominent on his first album, solo album, that song "Hold Me." I think like she has like part of one of the verses, and like she does sound really good. Yeah. Unfortunately, the song is just kind of, again, it's like Carl's solo albums. It's like they're almost like impressively unmemorable. Like it's like, how do you make an album so like where like almost every track just like goes in and just goes out. Like you just immediately just forget it after it ends. Like literally the only song I can remember at all on that album is Heaven and maybe Hurry Love, if that's on there. But like besides those two, like nothing sticks with me.
And the one got the Grammys.
What's that? The Grammy?
Got a Grammy.
Got the Grammy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't actually, I don't even remember how that one goes, so I have to listen to it again.
Oh,
But yeah, I've never really gotten the vibe too. Like she was like actually like that was like a 50-50 like songwriting collaborator thing where like they're both like really writing the songs together. I never really got that vibe from it. I kind of just feel like I don't know. I don't know. I just think I that's an interesting point you made, Justin, that like yeah, like Carl wasn't listening to like a lot of new music around that time. It is kind of interesting, you know, because that does kind of explain maybe why those albums sound the way they do. Like
that is. Yeah.
Yeah, because like they just like I wouldn't even know how to describe them other than just like generic like rock. Like I don't really know. Like it's like it's like generic like poppy rock. That's all I could say. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's music.
It's music.
Yeah.
Makes the boys Rozzy and the rep. Sorry.
All right, who's next, Rieley?
Riley's favorite person.
Hell yeah!
Oh.
I love. All right, I wanted to talk about this all episode. All right. So Steve Levine, he started off as a tape op at CBS Studios in 1975 when he was 17 years old. And through that connection, he actually met Bruce Johnston, who was producing the album Checkpoint by Sailor. Not a very memorable album. I like searched for it. It's not on streaming. It's not that good. But Bruce took a liking to Steve, probably because Steve really understood a lot of the newer technology, like the 24-track taping and all that. Most people thought Steve didn't really know what he was doing since he was like 17 years old, but Bruce really like stepped in and kind of made sure Steve would like have some sort of power and position. And he got him to become an engineer with him. And after recording with Bruce, he told Steve to go to LA so he wouldn't be wasted talent where he was. And he worked his way up to in-house engineer, and he worked on new wave acts and punk acts like XTC and The Clash. And I'm a huge Clash fan, so that was really cool to learn about.
Yeah.
Eventually, he found his way to Culture Club, and if you know anything about Culture Club, they were freaking huge. And he was the producer for some of their albums. And after a while, like around mid '80s, Bruce called him up and said, "Hey, can you produce the next Beach Boys album?" And that's what Beach Boys '85 is. The recording of that album kind of began June '84. And it was kind of like from the start that Steve really established his power, even though he was a really young guy. I think at that point he's like late 20s. He really established his power. He would like make backing tracks with a lot of those like the modern technology, like the Lindrum, and he would show those to Brian, and the two would kind of work together from there. He actually made a really big point about how big of a pain in the ass Landy was at that point in time. Like how like Landy would try to interfere, and he's like, "Oh, you got to do this, do that," and like Steve's like, "Shut the fuck up." Quote in the interview I read was he was a massive pain all the time. I'm sure he meant more than just pain, but yeah. But he like also worked really well with every member of the group. He actually worked with Terry Melcher a bit, and we'll mention him in a bit after this. But Terry Melcher did not help produce this album. This was like solely Steve's project. Like there's actually a quote from Steve that says, "Look, guys, you haven't had a hit record in ages, and I've got the #1 album on both sides of the Atlantic, so my reputation's on the line here. Come to the studio prepared." He said that to the band. I'm like, that's got freaking huge balls to say that. And then there's actually another story with him and Brian, where Brian kind of gave like a half-ass vocal on a song, and he told Brian, "Your voice sucks. You got to come back the next day from a vocal coach." And then the next day, Brian didn't show up. And then he's like, "Where the hell is Brian?" He's like, "They said he's actually at a vocal coach." And there's a story from the Smile tour in the early 2000s where Steve showed up to one of the shows, and Brian like met with him before the show. He's like, "Hey, after the show, can you tell me how my voice was?" And then Steve's like, "Yeah, sure. Why?" He's like, "Because you're the only one who'd be honest with me and would tell me if it was bad." So that was really so I mean, I think that kind of goes to show like how like he really was that guy, and he really took charge of this album. He also was the reason why Stevie Wonder contributed the song "I Do Love You." Stevie knew that Levine had a Lindrum and he wanted him to help sync his up. So he helped him out. And after doing that, Steve asked if he could give a song to the Beach Boys, and he did. So I Do Love You is because Steve Levine helped out Stevie Wonder. There's the Myron Smith tracks that show up on here. I think they're the two of her better ones, or at least contributions with Carl. It's Getting Late, and my favorite track off the album, Maybe I Don't Know. That's two really good songs. I think they're the two highlights for me from this album. Robert White Johnson also shows up on It's Getting Late, and another Carl track, Where I Belong. I mean, I like It's Getting Late. I mean, Myron Smith also helped out with that one, but Where I Belong is kind of a iffy song for me. Like, I like it. I won't turn it off, but it's not like a huge highlight. I've seen a lot of people hype that song up. I'm not really huge on it. Get You Back's also on this album, but I want to save that conversation for Terry Melcher later on. So, and the one track on here, Passing Friend, was always my least favorite. And then I figured out that Boy George wrote it. I'm like, oh, okay, that explains everything, because that sucks compared to the rest of the songs on there. Because like even like Where I Belong, I enjoy that to some degree, but it's still kind of filler. Passing Friend, I freaking hate it, and it's like 6 minutes too. So like, I hate that song. But other than that, I mean, I'm a huge Beach Boys '85 fan. I could talk for days on it. But what are your guys' thoughts on Steve Levine's production and his contributions to the songs?
Yeah, no, it's a really solid album. I kind of went into it not expecting much because like it doesn't get the best reviews on like anything really, but no, it's a really solid album. I like that like 80s poppy sound they were going for. It's digitally recorded too, and actually doesn't sound bad for a digital recording. Much better than the other one they did a couple of years later. That fun fact you mentioned about Stevie Wonder and the Lindrum. I'm just thinking to myself, why didn't he just call it Prince instead of the Lindrum? Because anybody,
I think he was in the UK at the time. That's why.
Yeah. In both sides of the Atlantic.
Oh, I see. I was in the UK at the time. That makes sense. That album was recorded in the UK. I did not know that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just
Redbus Studios or something.
I thought it was just like they recorded it in America and he just flew over for them. But
it was a little bit recorded in LA, but like the majority was recorded in Redbus.
Right. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. No, it's a really solid record, and yeah, I like it a lot.
Justin.
Yeah, Steve Levine. He obviously added a lot to their sound with this album. He has a very detailed production. Of course, running all that kind of machinery, as I know, because I've had setups that are similar to this, it requires a lot of like reading through manuals and stuff like that to figure out like what each button does and that kind of thing. Especially with this era of technology, like it's not as easy as it is now, where you just like press a button on a computer and like copy paste or whatever. It was really laborious to copy and paste something on a sequencer, like a hardware sequencer. Steve Levine also, yeah, like you said, he had that kind of attitude of, we're gonna make this a great album, and it's only gonna be great, and we can't like put any BS on it. Like it has to be great songs, great performances. We have to bring in good, like he brought in like the creme de la creme of the London session musicians. Even Gary Moore, who was like he played in Thin Lizzy in the late 70s. He's kind of like a hero of UK guitar. Played on Maybe I Don't Know. So it was pretty star-studded band that he assembled for the boys for this album. And yeah, it's a really solid album. The Robert Johnson tracks, he's another guy we don't really know too much about. He kind of met Carl at this time, and they kind of met through mutual friends, and wrote a couple songs together and had dinner a couple times and stuff. And yeah, and I've read interviews with him, and he has only great things to say about Carl. And I think they actually have another song in the can that never got released.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's ever going to be released.
They've played a clip from it on that Beach Boys Talk podcast. They played like a 20-30 second clip of that song, which is interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that gets released on the box set when that eventually shows up in 2035. But yeah, I think Steve Levine did a great job with this album. Like obviously with you have a member missing at this time because he was dead. And then you also have they're all in their 40s at this point, and they're probably like tired, and they haven't really recorded anything for 5 years, and they're just like really out of shape. This was the best he could really do, like with what he had in it. It's actually a pretty good album.
Jake.
Yeah, so this is an album that has grown on me over time. As I've said, I still wouldn't say it's a favorite of mine, but it definitely has like some really enjoyable moments. Like as I've mentioned, like I love the Get You Back. I love Crack at Your Love. I think that's one of the songs that really uses the '80s production to its advantage. Like I think Steve did a really good job with like the production on that track in particular. And really, I think the production throughout this album, I don't mind it at all. I think it's good. I think the Beach Boys, I think Steve did a good job of like bringing that '80s sound to the Beach Boys. My main issue with the album is just like that some of the songs just don't do anything for me from like a songwriting perspective. Like there's just songs that don't click with me. I think one of the ones you mentioned that you don't care for, Rieley, what is it? Where I Belong. It doesn't really do anything for me either. Passing Friend goes on for too long. I don't think it's bad, but like I think it is kind of a long song. A lot of the Carl co-writes don't really do much for me on this album, but yeah, I mean, it's an enjoyable album for sure. I think the critics are way too harsh on it for what it is. I think it shows it's like the Beach Boys actually trying something different and new, trying to like be with the times, which I really respect because like you look at an album like Keeping the Summer Alive and like they're definitely like kind of riding the nostalgia wave on that. And it's not like there's none of that on Beach Boys 85 because like you have like, oh God, what's the song? California Calling.
Yeah.
Which, again, as I've mentioned, like even that's kind of growing on me a little bit. It's got like a good melody, and I do think it's funny that Ringo Starr of all the songs they could put Ringo on, that's the song they chose. Like we couldn't put Ringo on like Get You Back or something, like really, like. But yeah, it's an album that's just growing on me over time, and like I could just see it kind of slowly moving up my album rankings over time, and I definitely think Steve did a solid job with it in terms of production. I'm not the biggest Culture Club fan. They have a couple songs that I like, but that's about it. They also have some songs that I can't stand, but I think Steve did a decent job with this album. So that's my thoughts.
I can go on about this album for days. I love Beach Boys 85. I hate when people say it's them being a nostalgia act. It's absolutely not. I mean, I think at times sometimes they ride like them trying to be like modern a little too hard, but it's still a very enjoyable album for me. It's moved up in my album rankings since our album ranking video. I love it. I don't think I see it going past maybe number 10 and number 9 for me, but it's one of my favorites, and I can go on about it for days. But let's move on to Terry Melcher. So we can now talk about Get You Back, which is one of my favorites off the Beach Boys 85. It's like number 3 or 4. That partnership with him and Mike Love began in 85 with the Get You Back, but he actually had a partnership with Bruce Johnson way back in the early 60s. But Terry Melcher was born in 1942. He was the son of Doris Day, and her first husband, I think. She had like 5. Ended up taking Doris Day's third husband's name, Martin Melcher. And then time went on. He kind of got a job around like working as an artist. He began working with Bruce Johnston as Bruce and Terry. He had a small solo career as Terry Day first, but eventually they kind of got together and started doing that surf stuff that was becoming popular because of the Beach Boys. They began recording together there for Bruce's album Surfing Around the World. Custom Machine charted at 85 and Summer Means Fun charted at 72, but they didn't really have a lot of success. They never released a full album, but they do have a lot of singles that they released. I mean, you guys ever listen to the singles? I know Jake has one particular song that he really likes from those. Which one is
Don't Run Away.
Oh yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, so I actually have listened to like the compilation of like their singles. Like it's not even close. Like that is the standout. Like that's what you need to hear. Like because it has like that very like Pet Sounds sound to it. It's just a really like pretty song. It's just really well written. I love the vocals on it. I think Mike's actually on this one during like that bridge section, which is really cool as well. I think Mike's like he's doing like the lower part on that. I don't know if you can really hear it, but according to what I've read, Mike is on there. But yeah, the Bruce and Terry stuff, it's not bad, but it just doesn't do much for me. I am not a huge fan of Terry's voice. I wish Bruce sang more of the songs. Terry's voice doesn't do too much for me. I find it annoying at times. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Bruce and Terry. They're just kind of like they got like that kind of that surf rock sound like the Beach Boys did. You can definitely like see what they were going for, but like a lot of the songs, I just don't find them very memorable. They kind of like just go in one ear and out the other. So yeah,
Yeah, that song is really good. Like it's so clearly the standout.
yeah, it's
Funny,
beautiful.
there's a funny thing about that song, Don't Run Away. So in 1978, there was a guy named Byron Priest who was writing a book on the Beach Boys. It's kind of like their first authorized biography. And he got kind of like access to the band and like asked some questions and stuff. And Diane Rovell asked him if he had a certain Honey song or something that they've long like didn't have for a long time, or it was a spring song or something. I can't remember which one, but he said, yeah, I have it on tape. I can tape it for you. It's no problem. And she's like, what do you want like for exchange? And he's like, can you give me some of the Smile material? And then they did like a swap. So Dennis Wilson actually put together this tape that has like Smile material, and then he had some other tracks, and then he put in that song, the Bruce and Terry song, but the instrumental version. And then
Oh,
he marked it I don't know. So maybe he thought that was a Beach Boys song or something, and like he had
that's
it like on
funny.
acetate or
Wow.
something. Yeah, yeah.
Wasn't that how
So
some of
that
the,
actually went to Byron Priest, the author of that song, and it was labeled I don't know that song.
wasn't that how some
It
of the
was the
first,
Don't Run Away instrumental.
when you were talking about the Smile tapes, wasn't that actually how the first some of the first bootlegs came out? Was when they
Right?
popped
Yeah,
into-
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a couple guys that flipped the tape after that, but we won't get into that now.
All right. Yeah, but then Bruce and Terry kind of worked as producers together, and they produced the Ripcords. I don't know if you guys ever listened to the Ripcords. They have a couple of songs. They're known for Hey Little Cobra,
Yeah.
which has Bruce and Terry on it as the vocalist and Terry Melcher as the lead vocalist on that song. It's all right. It's nothing special. It's kind of just like your car song from the 60s. But have you guys ever listened to that song or any of the Ripcords material?
I prefer Hey Little Tomboy.
You sure about that?
I'm dead serious. Dead serious. Better melody. I like more memorable song. Hey Little Cobra's fine. It's just like whatever. It's kind of like I don't know. It's just another kind of like generic like Beach Boys sounding song, but just like you can kind of see like why the Beach Boys were the band that really stood out like compared to a lot of these groups. Like you listen to Beach Boys and then you listen to Jan and Dean, which like some of their stuff's fine, but like again, it's not up to the quality level of the Beach Boys stuff. And then yeah, you listen to some of these like these off groups where like they have like a single or two that was really popular, like the Ripcords with Hey Little Cobra, and you kind of see like why the Beach Boys were the band that like stood above them all. So. Yeah.
Or the sun rays. They're like the equivalent of like, you know, that meme where it's like when you off Wish versus when you get it, that's like the Beach Boys and the sun rays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when Bruce joined the Beach Boys, it game over for Bruce and Terry as a duo. But I mean, Terry was already working at Columbia, and the other California band that was huge at Columbia or was going to be huge was the Byrds. They get a lot of traction for a lot of their material they were playing live. They actually did a live version of Mr. Tambourine Man that Bob Dylan thought was better than his. So once they started to get a little bit of traction, Terry was brought in to produce their first single, which was Mr. Tambourine Man. But Terry had the idea that these guys, they're not really gelling together great live. So he actually had the Wrecking Crew play the backing track to Mr. Tambourine Man. And it was only Roger McGuinn on his guitar that was the member of the Byrds on that single. But that single did really good. It hit #1. So they produced the album, Mr. Tambourine Man, and that's when Melcher was like, all right, these guys are starting to gel. So they actually had the band play on that album. And then the next single that Melcher produced for them, Turn, 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 also hit #1. So they had the ball going. They were doing really good. And then the Byrds manager at the time wanted to produce their record. I guess probably wanted some royalties. But they kind of had like a lot of fighting, and because the Byrds manager talked to Columbia, they had Melcher get booted from as their producer. But I don't know if you guys ever listened to the Byrds' first albums yet. Have you guys listened to those yet?
Yeah.
And what do you think? Do you think Terry was a good producer? Can you really like read into that, or is there not enough really there to work with?
I think he was a great producer. He knew what to get out of the bands at the time, and like his stuff with Bruce and Terry is still pretty good. Like it's not up to Beach Boys par, but it's still pretty good for like 1960s pop. And the Birds, I wouldn't say it's quite Beach Boys par, but it's pretty close for me. They are one of the best 60s bands, I would say.
Matt, did you ever listen to any of the Bird stuff?
No, I need to. I know it's on my list.
Shit, man. Like, it's one thing to not listen to Younger Than Yesterday because Gary Usher produced him, but like Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, Turn, Turn are like some of the best songs.
You've heard those before.
Yeah, no, I've heard those before. But I'm also like, I don't know, like Dylan, his voice is just. I know it's a great song, but his voice is. Bowie was not wrong. A voice like sand and glue. That was accurate.
Sing those, or at least these versions. Roger McGuinn did. I don't know where you're getting Dylan from. But yeah, luckily, their manager who booted Melcher did not get to produce their next albums. A guy named oh my god, where's his name? Not Jim Dickinson. That was the manager. Stanton was brought in for some of their psychedelic stuff, Fifth Dimension.
Right.
Gary Usher came in right after. Melcher did come back in the early 70s to produce Ballad of Easy Rider, their Untitled and Bird Maniacs, but those kind of like varying degrees of success and varying degrees of quality. There's some good tracks out there, but Bird Maniacs, terrible production.
Maniacs is pretty bad.
Maniacs
it's pretty bad.
Terry produced those, but I mean, to be fair, like the ones that came after, like the self-titled, the reunion album, not that good either. So I mean, kind of listen to your own discretion. There's some good tracks, especially on Easy Rider and Untitled, but in the mid '60s, fun facts, he played tambourine on "That's Not Me," "God Only Knows," and "Good Vibrations." So Melcher getting that studio time in, but after a while, I mean, he kind of for a bit, and then he came back with "Get You Back" with Mike Love, and all right, this is a really funny quote. Mike Love, who co-wrote the song, said, "I came up with a chorus idea that's really reminiscent of 'Don't Worry, Baby.' I think if Terry had been the producer on that song, it would have been far more successful."
Well, what did it peak at? It was really not that. First of all, it was a B-side.
"Get You Back"?
No, "Don't Worry, Baby."
But,
well, yeah, but
like he's hyping himself up. I mean, I don't hear it. I think it's a very good chorus. I think it's a very good song, but
yeah,
it's not "Don't Worry, Baby."
Yeah,
which is not bad for a B-side.
He's probably just like he's probably making like the loose connection of like the fact that they both open with like drums and stuff. Like, it's kind of like, but I mean, like, "Don't Worry, Baby," like that to me, like that's like the "Be My Baby, Don't Worry, Baby" comparison. I get that more, even though again, like is it a rip? Is it a rip off? Absolutely not. But I get that comparison more. "Don't Worry, Baby," to "Get You Back." I don't know. I mean, I guess they both have that 60s vibe, obviously, because one was written in the 60s and it has that drum sound. But I mean, I don't see what's wrong with the production on that song. I think it's great. I think it's like a great blend of like kind of like a retro 60s sound with like 80s production. I think it works fine.
Yeah, it's a great song. 26. It got 26, so it actually got around the same as "Don't Worry, Baby."
So not good enough for Mike though. Mike needed it.
Oh, that's Mike, right. Why do you think Mike is always hyping up Kokomo, which I know we'll get to that in a minute, because it got number one. It was
number one hit. Yes.
It was their biggest hit. It was on the chart for the most amount of weeks. So of course he's gonna hype it up.
He wrote one part of it, and the part he wrote was like not even the best part for me. Like always hyping himself up.
How much did Terry Melcher even write? Because my understanding was Kokomo was mostly John Phillips, right?
All right.
A lot of it's John Phillips. Yeah.
I will get to that. I do have the exact like who wrote what part.
Oh wow, that would be interesting to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, when Mike said that quote, he said that it was the chorus that was reminiscent of "Don't Worry, Baby," but like that's like semantics. It's fucking Mike Love being Mike Love. Yeah, I mean, Terry also produced "California Dreamin'," their cover of it, which I actually think it's a pretty good cover.
Yeah, it's solid. Is it better than Mamas and Papas? No, but it's solid.
Like for like an '80s cover by the Beach Boys, like I mean, it's definitely like probably the best cover you could probably do of that song, especially around that time. Like I wouldn't have rather like somebody else did it. I'm glad the Beach Boys did it, and like yeah, But I mean, Al wanted to originally produce it, but it was actually at Bruce's like persistence that Terry do that. To be fair, like I think in the article I read, it like Bruce said that Terry's been out of music for a while. We kind of want to like rope him back in. But let's get to Kokomo. All right, so
Rock to the rescue.
How about no? We're not
That's a Bill House collaboration too. He's in that too.
Yeah, as an associate producer. Yeah, that's
Yeah. He did all the instruments on that track.
That is not a great song. No, it really isn't. And it has a
weird. And it'll rescue me, and it'll rescue you.
It's got a weird ass bit.
They just went like overloaded with the effects on that song.
Hey now.
That's why I want
production mess.
Yeah.
Kokomo. Al got Terry involved in Cocktail. He said, like, Al literally said to him, like, if you're not going to do it, then we're not going to participate in this project. So that's what got Terry right into it. John Phillips wrote the original demo for it. It's on YouTube if you guys haven't heard it. It's pretty good, but I got to admit, it does need a big chorus, and they kind of got that. So John Phillips wrote the verses. Mike wrote the Aruba, Jamaica part. And then Terry was the one who came up with the "Ooh, I want to take you down to Kokomo." That part was Terry. So I think it was they each came up with a part to the song. Mike's part's probably like the least important part for me personally. Like I don't.
Yeah, but I will say it is memorable. It is a good like hook to like start the chorus. Like I actually think like it's like I know it's a really cheesy line, but like you definitely remember it. Like if you ask me to think of Kokomo, that's the first lyric that comes to my mind. I think Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I want to take you, Bermuda, Bahama. So
yeah, I don't know if you guys watch American Dad, but there was an episode of American Dad where it's the one where Roger like starts selling pictures of himself to make money, and he ends up getting hired from the CIA, and it was like, we need you to tell us where you see the alien. He's like, okay, Aruba, Jamaica, Bermuda, like puts all so you can go on vacation.
That's funny.
I was just about to mention there's an episode of Family Guy where Stewie's like getting like a tan or whatever.
Yeah.
And in the tanning bed, he's like, "Ooh, I want to take you down to Kokomo."
Yeah. And then he stays in the tanning bed too long, and then Brian like has to put like lotion on him, and it looks like he's like on him, and then like Don Knotts comes in, like his character from what's that show, Andy Griffith's show, as
yeah.
So that's kind of weird. That's Seth. But yeah, I mean, like I gotta be honest, like yeah, you need that Aruba Jamaica part, but to get to that, ooh, I want that part. That's my favorite part of the song, though. That car.
Mine too. That makes the song. Yeah, it makes the song.
I'll give Terry credit where credit's due, but it's a good song. I like Kokomo. I hate anybody who bashes it. Like, is it my favorite Beach Boys song? No. But should it be like the number 3 stream song on Spotify by the Beach Boys? No. But
yeah,
it should not be Blender's all-time worst either. Like it's on that list.
It is good. It deserved to get them to number 1. I'm glad that it got to number 1 for them. I think they kind of needed that. I hate what it brought after. I feel like that's why a lot of people hate it. What it came after with Summer in Paradise and the 12 Kokomo song album, I don't really like it, but Kokomo's sick. I love Kokomo. But I like from what I read, like Terry was really involved in the production on it. He didn't want it to sound like any of the previous Beach Boys records. He wanted it to sound new and hip. There's a quote that I sent Jake earlier that I want to read. But I want to save that for the very end of Terry Melcher after we go over Summer in Paradise.
Okay.
It's such a funny quote. But yeah, I mean Terry came up with the "Ooh, I want to take you," and another thing that I thought was pretty funny, Terry was very adamant to get Ry Cooder on guitar because he wanted a Rolling Stones sound. Where do you get the Rolling Stones sound in Kokomo? I don't know, but
and then he plays the acoustic on that.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know where you're getting the freaking. That's like literally the quote from the ESQ article I read. Like I was like, I had to double check and like, what? You're playing a
I don't understand.
Just strumming chords. He's just strumming chords. If that's the acoustic part, I can't think of any like slide part because that would be Ry Cooder thinking of like a slide guitar or something like that.
I mean, I'm sure
that was his thing.
Sure, Keith Richards has played chords, but I didn't think I don't think he's famous for his acoustic guitar strumming.
Yeah.
After that, after the success of Kokomo, that's when Mike Love had his genius idea to make Still Cruisin', an album of all songs that have been in movies. The weirdest concept album of all time, in my opinion. Actually, that might be a little too bit of a stretch, but there wasn't really a lot like talking about like his specific contributions to that album. I know Jake wanted to hear about Make It Big. There wasn't really much on there besides like, oh, he said play this drum part, so we played this drum part. And I mean,
well, I just wanted to learn more about it because I know Justin mentioned that it's actually an older song, right, Justin? Like it's from like the late 70s or something, you said?
Yeah, that was a Bill House song. Yeah.
And
They
you
kind of
said-
spruced up.
Do you know like where you can originally hear that, or where you can hear that original version? Because like I was looking for it a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't find it.
Try YouTube.
What
Try
should I
YouTube.
type in? Like Bill House.
Make It Big.
Okay, I
It's
will.
like it's either called Make It Big or You Can Make It Big. It's something like that, but it's the same song. It's just some of the words were changed around.
Okay, no, I got to get. I want to hear
And
the
then
original version.
Mike added in like a certain part to it as well too.
Was it did he add in the baby you're a superstar looking like you're going?
I think
far?
that's the part, and the Johnny Be Good part too. Yeah,
It's funny how like I just picked out the Mike part just guessing. I was just like I'm gonna guess
think
that
that
was the
was-
Mike part. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do like that part though. Nothing against it. I actually like that part a lot. But
yeah.
Look up Beach Boys, and you'll know exactly what Mike is contributing.
There's also a demo that Terry Melcher did in '85 for Doris Day. There's a Doris Day version of that song too.
Oh Lord!
oh wait,
gets a little
wait,
bit
wait, wait.
closer.
Of make it big.
Yeah,
Are you
it
serious?
gets a little bit close. Yeah, it gets a little bit closer to the Still Cruisin' version. Like he
Oh, I
changed
gotta
around
hear
some
that.
of the stuff from the Bill House version. Yeah,
I gotta
you can
hear
hear
that.
it like kind
And
of
there it
progress
is.
along.
Doris Day and Terry Melcher, Make It Big. Elora put it on her YouTube channel.
Oh,
1985.
of course, Laura did. Oh, God bless Laura. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to give that a listen.
I will say on the topic of Still Cruising, Somewhere Near Japan. That's a great song.
Talking
And,
about- let me
Terry-
get to-
That is a great song.
That's a great song.
yeah. Mike Love is actually
So that was. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say Mike Love is actually the biggest Beach Boys collaborator of all time.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Japan. So Somewhere in Japan was actually another John Phillips one. I sent this to Jake like a couple of hours ago. It's actually been a long time. Like John Phillips' song was originally titled "Fairy Tale Girl," and it's really weird. I mean, I know
Yeah.
the subject matter is already pretty weird on that song, but like, it's hearing that like not with any '80s production, not with any of like that like chorus pedal driven guitar stuff. Like, it's so weird. It's like just like a folky like psych pop song, and it's just like it's not like anything I've heard. It's like I'm going backwards. Like it's like hearing a really bad cover first, hearing that version first, and then going back in time and hearing like the original version of the song. But like not as good. I think what the Beach Boys did with it was a million times better.
It's like it's like hearing the original version of Sloop John B with like the Kingston Trio or whatever, and then the Beach Boys version. It's like, wow, this is a completely different song. Like, you know, it's very different. It's very different. I just heard it today because you sent me it.
Yeah, I read that in the ESQ article. I was like, what? I mean, I knew it was like a John Phillips song, but I didn't expect it to be like
His
that.
daughter, right?
Yeah, it is about his daughter.
Yeah.
But Mike and Terry, they made it a little bit more like of like a general song about a girl being like lost somewhere near Japan. And
Well, yeah, they had to, of course. I mean, now we know what happened with him and his daughter. So
Well, that was years. That was yeah, right.
later, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, generally with Terry's like production techniques, like what they said was like Terry was like really good at like pointing things out and like saying you do this, you do that. Like he would sing the part he'd want them to sing first for them, and then they would just repeat it. Like, I mean, I think he's a good producer. I think like this album in particular isn't really much of a misstep for him in production. I think the next one absolutely is, but that's also let's just get to it. Summer in Paradise.
Wait. What about Problem
No,
Child?
well,
Oh my God, shut up.
Problem Child is a banger. That was Love and Melcher? Melcher who wrote that too?
Melcher. There's no love on that.
Yeah,
one.
no, I love that song. It's a banger. I love it. Besides the kids going yeah 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 yeah. Besides that, I like every other part of the song. I think Carl absolutely kills it with his vocal, and I love the music video. Is a lot of fun. It's a good song.
I want to talk about it. It's so corny, and I hate the yeah. Like I like the Carl. That's it. That's all I like about that song.
Yeah, I like the Carl vocal, but otherwise, yeah, I got it. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be. And then
that's actually a good point. I did forget to mention that Terry was actually the person, like, because of his like connections with everybody, he was actually the reason why they got a lot of those like soundtrack jobs was from Terry. So he is the reason why we have Problem Child and whatever that other song we mentioned was earlier. That was whatever. And
the
like
Baby Club summed it up best. By 1990, the Beach Boys were more brand than band.
Well,
yeah. Well, they also did like the soundtrack for like that cartoon, whatever. I forgot which one that was.
Cartoon.
Was it a cartoon? It's like the one with the bear on the front and like happy endings.
Oh God, happy endings.
Oh yeah. Was that with Little Richard?
That was Little Richard.
Oh God, that song.
Yeah.
Little Richard does not sound good on it.
You gotta thank Terry Melcher for all these awesome soundtrack songs. I mean, Kokomo's awesome, but and Still Cruisin's pretty good. I like that. That was in Lethal Weapon too.
Yeah.
So
I like that. Have
you guys heard Chasing the Sky?
I think that's the one, right?
From 1984. Yeah.
That's a Melcher love?
I have no idea if it's Melcher, but it was a soundtrack song.
Yeah, from Up the Creek.
I've never heard. Yeah. I'm gonna have to.
It's a Carl vocal.
Oh, I'm gonna have to listen. Okay,
yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm gonna do that. Listen.
They need to make a deluxe edition of Still Cruising where they put all this other stuff on. I know
they should have put that on Still Cruising. I don't know why they didn't do that.
Because they had to put all the old stuff. Because it's like from like the big.
Well, that was Capitol.
Well, yeah, because they had to put something in there so people would buy it. Like that's from the Big Chill. They put "Wouldn't It Be Nice" in there.
Was Problem Child after Still Cruising?
Yeah, so it was 1990. Yeah.
So it would have been then. Yeah. No, because that would have went good on there. Put that with like Make It Big. Hell yeah.
Oh, we can't forget the Fat Boy song too.
No, we can forget that actually.
Number 2 in the UK. I'm surprised Mike doesn't bring that one up.
Yeah, but we did that version of Wipeout that was pretty big for us. So now we're gonna play it at our concert, and they have the Fat Boys coming out, and they're like 70 years old.
And Billy Hinshy doing it when he was still around.
I want to see that. That's sick.
Yeah.
It's like I don't care how.
I'm surprised nobody has any videos of that.
Come on, Justin, you let us down, man. You could have been like, "Oh, I better film this for the future. People are gonna want to see this."
With what? With video cameras? How expensive they were back then?
I don't care.
That's true.
Okay, so we're moving on.
My dad brought one home one day, and like that was like a huge thing to have a video camera.
All right. Let's talk about Summer in Paradise. The first album one of the first albums done on Pro Tools, and you hear Bruce Johnson and Mike Love never shut up about that, but
It shows.
like, I watched the 2012 interview, like for whatever reason, I was on that YouTube rabbit hole, and I was like, and Bruce Johnson's like, yeah, we're one of the first people to use Pro Tools. I'm like, it didn't come out very good, Bruce. Shouldn't be bragging about that.
Basically, as far as Melcher produced the whole thing, right? Yeah, except for Forever.
Okay, songs.
Some of the songs are fine on this, like Lahaina. How do you say it? Lahaina?
Lahaina Aloha.
That's by far the best. And then we have crap like Summer in Love. I don't know what the hell that is. That's literally, that's bad when you go on Discogs and the very first top review says, this is the one where the Beach Boys have a rap song. I just wanted to warn you. And that's what they're talking about. Because what the hell was that? And the video is even worse.
It's a love thing.
It's a love thing. If you go on Genius, it's like 45-year-old or 50-year-old Mike Love going after an 18-year-old girl or something.
Whoa. Yeah, there's like that line. He's like, I'm gonna take you on a love vacation. Like, oh God.
And he like turns around and little like hands like It's like, dude, you like put up in life in prison for being a lazy man. Like,
that's one of those songs we were talking about the music videos earlier. That's one of those songs where like if you just hear the song and you don't see the video, it's kind of like, like this is like cheesy and stupid, but like whatever. Then you see the video and it becomes 10 times more appalling. Then it's like, oh my God. Like,
I'm just enjoy it because it's so bad.
well, yeah, I mean, I do too. I laugh at it. I don't like passionately hate the song. I more so just like I cringe at it, but like it's kind of funny in like a weird way.
I think the song sucks personally, but
no, I know. I mean, it sucks. Like if we're judging it as a song, it's terrible. But like, there's just something I just find it amusing that it exists.
But yeah, as far as this album, I agree. Like any redeeming factor it has is just ruined by the production because the production is just awful. Like I get it. It was a demo or not a demo. It was a beta version of a software, whatever. But this kind of explains why they usually don't use beta versions of software to record albums because it doesn't sound good.
They're big cheap.
I wouldn't say it was even cheap. I mean, I guess a Quadra was cheaper than Macintosh Quadra was not cheap back then.
Yeah, and I mean, and the thing is too, like again, like I wouldn't say like I know people love to just like trash on the album, but like I think some of the songs are fine. Like, and I've said like Lahaina Aloha, I love that song. Like I think that song is so like above everything else on that album. Like it's one of the best songs. I think I said that in the Hot Take episode. I think it's one of their best songs post Love You, honestly. I love it. But again, the production holds it back. Like with the last time I was listening to it, I for whatever reason, I was like really noticing the drums this time. And I was like, oh God, like, yeah, I wish the drums didn't sound like that. Like I wish somebody would redo this thing. But Carl's vocal on it is so good. And even some of the cheesier stuff, like Under the Boardwalk, I like that cover. I think it's a nice cover. The production, again, cheesy production, but like Carl delivers a really good vocal on it. The title track, Summer in Paradise, has never done much for me. Respect to Mike for doing the environment lyrics, but then he's kind of a hypocrite with that stuff too. So, so you guys said Melcher was not involved with Forever. So like, what's the production credit on Forever? Because I want to know who to blame.
Gary Griffin and John Stamos and somebody else. Lanny
Right, I'll just blame John. Okay.
Actually, Mike Love has a writing credit on Under the Boardwalk.
Well, they probably because I think they added some lyrics. I think like there might be a verse that he added, but I mean that's an old song by the Drifters, I think. So
no, it is. But like,
yeah.
I'm just thinking of Mike Love when he like rewrote Student Demonstration Time, and it like, credit to the old artist. He's just like new lyrics.
Love, yeah.
He wrote "Their Hearts Were Full of Spring" too.
Right.
That's actually not that bad. I don't think so.
No, that's not bad. I'm just saying he rewrote that one too.
But yeah, I mean, Terry Melcher has a lot of the writing credits, and it shows. I feel like him and Mike Love, like signature partnership. Honestly, like if you look at like their background together, it gets you back. And like just them, pretty much all of Summer in Paradise with like the Kokomo ripoffs and
Island Fever.
I like Island.
Yeah. It's all right. It's all right.
It's not bad. I Summer in Paradise, I do like the UK mix that they had Roger McGuinn on.
I think I've heard that. Yeah.
Those like extra mixes actually weren't terrible. I think if it was like a lot less compressed and a lot more like genuine, it would have come out a lot better. But it's again like there's not really much to forgive with the rest of the album. It's just all slow summer dancing every single track.
Oh,
that's a weird one too, right? Because it's like half a new song, but then it's also an old song at the same time. So
yeah,
there's so much reverb on those drums at the beginning. Holy shit!
Wow, back then that '90s gated reverb drum effect.
Oh, so bad.
Then also in terms of effects too, like another like song that really is like offensive in terms of effects is like the cover of Walking in the Sand. Remember Walking in the Sand? It starts out though with the remember, and then it's like you got the obnoxious like sax solo at the beginning, like the it's like oh
that's the Kenny G influence right there.
And like
Kenny G was big.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because like again, like Carl on vocals, like he's killing it. Like Carl sounds good. It's just like everything going around like behind him is just a mess. Like the rest of the track is just a disaster. So.
I I like Terry Melcher a lot. I like a lot what he did with the Birds. I'm a big Birds fan, and I like Get You Back, and I like a good chunk of Still Cruising, but I don't think he was. And obviously, him and Mike are really good. We're really good friends, but not.
I think I feel like it's a situation where like when they hit, they actually did like hit. Like when they like made a solid song, it actually like does hold up. Like you think of like Get You Back and like Kokomo, I think it's held up. People still love that song to this day. And, well, I hate to, but a lot of people do like that song. But then like you look at some of these other songs that we've mentioned, and it's like, oh my God, like wow, like they missed. Like
Part of me wonders if like maybe they just hit at the wrong time. I mean, they're also like both in their like late 40s, maybe like like I mean, it's just might be the time period because I mean, maybe what would have happened maybe if they hit in the 70s? Like I don't know if we would have gotten Kokomo, but who knows? It's I gotta give some like credit to like maybe them just being too old, but God damn, it is Summer in Paradise is freaking terrible. All right. I kind of want to end here. I do kind of want to talk about Thomas a little bit. But that's kind of more of like a Brian solo thing. I mean, I know he helped out on the 2012 album, That's Why God Made the Radio, and I think I said in another episode that I liked the production on that. I don't know what I was talking about. That shit's trash. It's so, like I think it's because I hadn't listened to the album in a long time, and I just kind of remembered melodically what I remembered about the album. And like upon a re-listen like a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, this is so compressed and like the vocals are so auto-tunes and it's just
Well, also when it comes to compression, that could also just be like a mastering thing because that's just how everything is mastered nowadays. Everything is compressed now, especially anything by freaking Rick Rubin. Oh my God.
I like what he did with the new Abnormal though. I thought he did pretty good.
He's a good producer, but everything is so goddamn compressed. It's like, oh my God, can't we have some dynamics left? Does everything have to be squashed within an inch of its life? One of the worst. Is anybody familiar with the 97 remix of Raw Power that Iggy Pop did? Oh my God.
Never listened to that one, no.
He squashed all the dynamics out of everything. Just compressed the fuck out of it.
I did not like that. I'm a big Stooges guy, and Raw Power was yeah, but I mean kind of I don't know. I don't really know where to go from here.
Do you want to share that quote you mentioned earlier?
All right. So this is like one of the greatest things I've ever heard to come out of Mike Love's mouth. And like I've heard his vocals for All I Want to Do, and I think this is actually better. All right. Nobody has that kind of instantaneous and spontaneous brilliance in the studio with a bunch of session musicians in real time like Brian did. As far as analyzing what needs to be done, how it should be done, and why it should be done, though, for radio play and where it should be placed, there was nobody more astute than Terry.
I mean, take that, Brian.
Like talk about hyping up your boy. Like,
well, you know, Mike, he always has to like say something like that. Do we want to talk briefly about like I know Joe Thomas is whatever. Andy Paley, he had some cool stuff.
Yeah, I do want to give some honorable mentions. Andy Paley, but I feel like that's kind of more for like a solo album kind of to talk about Andy Paley and the Paley sessions. I really did want to talk about him. It's just like that's more of a solo thing because then we can also go into more like Dennis's collaborators on Bamboo. Probably if we get to that. I mean, we talked about it a little bit today with Myron Smith and Carl's solo albums. We can talk more about those guys, but as far as like the Beach Boys collaborators, I mean, just in the band, these are all the guys in this episode and the last one. Besides Tony Asher, who do you guys think was the greatest collaborator with the band?
Jack Rieley.
Yeah. Jack Rieley. Because, Justin, what do you think?
Jack Rieley, yeah.
Jack Rieley, yeah. Yeah, I just feel like you look at the songs that Jack did with the band, like that co-wrote with them, and like I just think those songs really hold up. Like they're just great songs lyrically, and Long Promised Road, The Traitor, Feel Flows, Marcella. I know that was mostly just like lyrics and stuff, but yeah, like his songs I feel like really hold up, and he's an interesting collaborator too, or like a very like notable collaborator because he collaborated with the multiple members. It wasn't just like he worked with just Carl, like he also worked with on like the lyrics on Sail on Sailor. He worked with Dennis, I believe, on a song. I forget what song. Was it Steamboat? I think it's Steamboat.
Nope.
He did the
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like he worked with all three Wilson brothers. So yeah, just a very notable collaborator, and obviously did a lot with their image at that time when they were really struggling commercially. So yeah, to me, it's Jack Rieley.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, Jack Rieley worked with them on 3 albums, and the other guys, like that we mentioned, like, I mean, I guess Terry worked with them on 2.
Terry Melcher, yeah.
Like he worked, but like Jack Rieley was on there for 3. And as much as I love Steve Levine, he only really produced and helped co-wrote a couple of songs on a Beach Boys 85, and that's just one album. And even like that album's kind of like iffy in some spots. Jack Rieley's like worked on my Holland and Surf's Up and Carl and the Passions, 3 of their like most critically acclaimed albums, I feel. So
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, and then like as far as like like Van Dyke Parks had some cool stuff too, but some of it got a little odd.
yeah, and Gary Usher kind of probably like a handful of songs, and Roger Christian had Little Deuce Coupe, and clearly Little Deuce Coupe doesn't have a lot of fans.
Don't worry, baby. So
Okay, you know what? Listen, okay, I will say, I feel like I have to say this for any listeners that listened to the last episode we did. I was too harsh on Car Crazy Cutie. I re-listened to it. It's not that bad. It's definitely one of the stronger songs on the album. I was too harsh on it. But like I still don't think it should have made that compilation, but whatever.
We had to put that on there. We had to put that on there just to annoy you, just like
Yeah, I know. Rieley was just like really enjoying that. That was just to get me. So thanks for that, Rieley. But I admit I was too harsh on the song. It's not that bad.
For the playlist, I really wanted Wendy on there, but then I remembered Car Crazy Cutie is pissing Jake off, so it's worth it.
That's okay. When we do the other one, we'll find something else to piss somebody else off.
Yeah, I'm gonna piss off Rieley. I'm gonna take a load off your feet on our 70s one. So yeah, we're gonna. You guys need to back me up on that. We're getting take a load off your feet on that freaking album.
As long as it doesn't take up big serious space on that.
I mean, I don't like Do It Again, and I've gotten hell for that one. I don't care if it ends up on the album.
Yeah, you don't.
They wrinkle like raisins.
Sorry, I don't. That song's all right. I don't mind it. But anyway, yeah. So
yes, we feel like we've covered everybody. All right, yeah. All right, so thank you everyone for listening to this 12th episode of Good Timin. I hope you all enjoyed the show. It's been a lot of fun talking with you guys about all the different collaborators that the Beach Boys have worked with over the years and learning more about each of them. And I hope that those of you listening learned something new as well. So as always, if you like this podcast and want to hear more, feel free to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. We greatly appreciate the support as it motivates us to make more episodes in the future. Also, as a reminder, the podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So there's plenty of different places to listen and keep up with the show. So thank you again, as always, for listening, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.